I opened up my Origami King review by saying it was one of the most polarizing Mario games, and I could really open up my talk on Mario and Luigi Brothership the same way. You could even argue that this one's an even bigger point of contention, as there was a lot more banking on this one. Origami King and Modern Paper Mario have had their fair share of scrutiny, I'm well aware of that, but at least it was an active series with a new game out every 4 years. Paper Mario was only dead metaphorically to certain people. Mario and Luigi, on the other hand, they were taken out back and shot. Just in case somebody watching isn't filled in, the Mario and Luigi games were developed by Alpha Dream, who in the mid-2010s were on their last legs due to crippling debt and poor revenue, and seeing as their new games weren't selling well, they tried to pivot to remakes of their classic titles, but that didn't work out too well either, and the last nail in the coffin would be a 3DS remake of Bowser's Inside Story, which is the fan favorite, so smart move there, except that the original was a DS game, and you can play DS games on the 3DS, so why would you buy this? Well, at least it has updated graphics. That must look pretty... Oh... And so, Alpha Dream would officially file for bankruptcy in 2019. I'm not really sure how much fault I should give them, because they were backed into a corner, but it was also their mismanagement that got them there in the first place. Regardless, it's sad to see them go when they were responsible for one of the most beloved Mario spin-offs. Mario and Luigi was in one of the worst fates an IP can be in, that being homeless. And for a couple years, the only speculation of a new game was fueled by hopium and copium, but I guess that's just a thing you need sometimes, because it was one of many that benefited from this Mario RPG renaissance from 2023 to 24. First, they announced a remake of the original Super Mario RPG, and then one for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door later that year, and these were a pretty big deal to be even acknowledged. I assume that if you brought these up to Shiggy, he'd plug in his ears and say, la la la, I can't hear you. And finally, Mario and Luigi was given the highest honor of not a remake, but an actual new game, meaning that this series is genuinely revived. It's funny to think that there was a time where Mario RPG fans had it rough, and now all three branches had a comeback within a single year.
I guess crying does solve your problems after...
You'd think it would be sunshine and rainbows from here, but there was also a concern for the outcome of, what if it sucks? And to an extent, this worry became a reality. Heavily mixed opinions and controversy followed Brothership everywhere, from pre-release, launch window, to the now retrospective viewpoint. I really couldn't tell you the general consensus, but I do know that the feelings toward it were very passionate due to its resurrected status. Because on one hand, if the game ends up being great, it feels all the better to be back, but if it sucks, the disappointment is immeasurable. Like, imagine if Jesus got resurrected and he had frame rate issues. No matter what, this wasn't going to fully recapture those classic games, because this wasn't crafted with the same hands. Nintendo passed this IP on to Acquire, a studio that no doubt has a solid track record, but no hands-on experience with their Red Stash and Green Stash. And while a fair amount of developers from Alpha Dream were brought back for this, change was inevitable, and that seemed to be a hard pill to swallow for some fans. But enough of what the people thought, what does the me think? I'm not as fanatic about the Mario and Luigi games as I am about Paper Mario. Between Paper Mario Son and Mario and Luigi Daughter, and I guess Forced Maze non-binaries, I definitely lean toward that first branch, but I consider myself a Mario and Luigi enjoyer. I started with Dream Team and that's my favorite one so far. I played a good chunk of Partners in Time and Paper Jam, but never got around to finishing them. I eventually went back to the first title, Superstar Saga, and I thought it was kind of fun, just really fucking painful sometimes. And I recently started Bowser's Inside Story to see what the hype's all about, and to have a good frame of reference when talking about the classics. I really like the core mechanics, how the two Mario brothers are treated as equal player characters and have to work as a unit to function properly, and the turn-based battle system is so unique with how every attack can be countered. I love the idea that you could end a fight without a scratch if you're skilled enough. These games are also defined by their humor. That comes in the form of both a visual slapstick and some very quotable dialogue. It's hard to say what prevents me from being a super fan. I think I struggle to engage with them long term. I've ran into consistent problems with pacing and repetition. I find the story structure scatterbrained at times, and far be it from me to criticize an RPG for having words, but with the plethora of tutorial sections in these games, they could definitely be less verbose. Partners in Time was criminal with insistent tutorials in the beginning. Oh, and Dream Team was real bad with this. This guy's been playing for a full day, and he's now being lectured on how to make a ball of Luigi's. All of this to say that due to my smaller attachment with Mario and Luigi, my review on Brothership doesn't come from a place of nostalgia, but neither from expertise. Most of its issues are unique to itself. There's a lot I love about Brothership, and in some places I can see a true masterpiece, but there's a fair amount of things holding it back from greatness. So even though I'm really happy that this game exists, and I love what it stands for, I'm still gonna say things how they are. The game opens with Luigi being at his most Luigi, getting chased by a swarm of bees and almost offing himself in the process. And you can tell from Mario that this is just another Tuesday for him. Already we have perfect characterization of the brothers. Mario is the level-headed one that gets them out of trouble, and Luigi is the clumsy one that gets them into trouble. Unfortunately for them, holding hands is a sin, so they're being removed from this planet. Through the wormhole they see these portals of exposition, but Mario gets separated from Luigi in the process. Next thing we know, Mario winds up on a beach and this crab almost cuts off his salami. We don't really know where we are, but there's only one thing on Mario's mind right now.
Luigi? Luigi! 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 Luigi!
And concurrently, there's only one thing on Luigi's mind. The brotherly bond between Mario and Luigi are the heart of the story, almost like it's the subtitle. It's a running theme throughout, but it's the focal point of this opening area, and I can't help but find it wholesome. I think their limited speech plays a big part in that. One important thing to note about the vocal performance is that this was one of the first Mario games after the voice of the Mario brothers, Charles Martinet, stepped down from voicing them and is now the Mario ambassador. So if Mario wants to sleep over at a friend's house, he needs to ask him first. And starting with Mario Wonder, his characters have been passed down to Kevin Afghani, who before this mostly voiced for indie projects. That's gotta be a wild feeling, you know? One day you're in Among Us and Cuphead, the next you're selected to fill in for the video game brothers. I remember this during a lot of controversy. I knew how it felt to be a Sonic fan, and I can't fathom how you guys deal with this every day. And I will admit, his performance was a little rusty at first.
Oh yeah, Mario time! You suck!
But I felt that Brothership was the turning point for the better. I mean, he kinda had to lock in when he has to go. He does have some big-ass shoes to fill, but to be honest, I don't want him to fit it perfectly. I don't want a one-to-one imitation of Martinet's Mario and Luigi. I want to hear what they sound like from his point of view, and he's been doing an upstanding job with that. Brothership and Mario Kart World are his best performances so far. So they're able to reunite from getting picked up by this ship-shaped island called, well, Shipshape. At the helm is this girl named Connie, who fills us in on where we are and what's going on, but I'll give you the spark notes. This world of Concordia is built around gardening and landscaping through light and electrical currents. They have this whole theme of fusing agriculture with electricity. Instead of botanists, there's botanists, and Connie is one in training. There's these sprite bulbs that produce Conductor. The people have faces like power outlets, genuinely peak character design right there. And the land is connected through electrical currents between lighthouses, and this giant tree with a light bulb called the Uni-Tree keeps it all together. So once the Uni-Tree got annihilated, the land got split up into a bunch of islands. Best thing to do is to reconnect those islands to the tree and figure stuff out from there. And tagging along with us will be Connie's little friend over here named Snoutlet. I don't know what got into me during this new playthrough, but I just couldn't get enough of Snoutlet. I think he's freaking awesome. Everything from his character design, the way his high-pitched voice sounds, but I mostly gravitate toward his personality. He's often pretty dry and just kind of responds to things realistically and will call bullshit when he sees it. There's just something funny to me about this little goober with a southern accent that's actually pretty grounded and just wants to get things done. I added him to my Tomodachi Life Island. He just kind of floats down the streets and that's about it.
Why do I have this awful premonition that I'm going to have nightmares tonight?
It's not long until we find an island in the distance. The question is how we're gonna get over there. Snoutlet starts to point toward the cannon, and you can tell they do not like where this is going.
No, no, no!
I don't think I can go any longer without talking about the art style and animation because, I mean, look at this. From the first time I saw this in the announcement trailer, I was sold just from how the game looked. Due to the Mario and Luigi game sticking with handheld consoles, the graphics were limited to its benefit, using mainly sprite work and very limited 3D. And when jumping to the Nintendo Switch came with a much higher standard in presentation, I think they took the best approach possible. Everything from the proportions to the shading of the characters, it really feels like the artwork from the Alpha Dream titles were pulled right off the page into a new dimension. That also goes for the environment. Everything is textured in the style of 2D artwork and is given depth with thick outlines. They designed a 3D world like it's 2D, and I find that very appealing. And the goofiness of the sprite animation was also translated really well into these models. All the character models are very elastic, there's a lot of squash and stretch at play, and that's accompanied by a lot of exaggeration. You got stuff like wide eyes and jaws dropping, comically large sweat and tears, that kind of stuff. They also put quite the flair into visual effects, such as impact particles and motion lines. It's the little things that can add a lot of character. This all culminates to create a stylized blend of 2D and 3D that's such a delight to see in action. I'm obsessed with how this game looks. Our first island is a pretty unique one of Rumbla Island. It's a mix of springtime and autumn grassland, surrounded by a culture all about stone sculpting. We're told to meet with the chief of the village, Wilma, who we have to get out of a scuffle with these guys that do weird things with their fingers. They freak me out. After escorting her home from those weirdos, and after a conversation about kids and stuff, she opens the way to the lighthouse, which is on top of their famous sculpture, the Rumbla dish. Damn, I cannot imagine how long it took to make this one. It would be a real shame if some people, like, blew that shit up. Keep these guys miles away from the Getty Art Museum. The variety here makes up for the slow pacing, and you might think that's because of how they have to sit down and lecture you about the Luigi sphere, but the tutorials in this game are surprisingly fluid. I'm so used to these taking as long as humanly possible. Here we have the tutorials from Partners in Time. Minutes later, they teach you the exact same mechanic, but instead of using the X button, you use the A button. Hey, you want to learn how to jump with the A and the B button? You can't skip this one. This is how you attack with Mario and Luigi, and this is how you know who to dodge with. Meanwhile, this is the battle tutorial in Brothership. Changing it to be just a few pages to skim through is beautiful. It's simply beautiful. Both kinds of players win here because if you already know, you can mash through it within seconds, and for those who need guidance, it gets the message across in a timely fashion. Sometimes they would ask if you want to skip the instructions, but that's after they've already put their foot in the door, asking if I have time to talk about our Lord and Savior.
Jesus Christ.
So the slow pace doesn't come from hand-holding, rather it's just from the speed in which things progress. Part of that is to show off many cases where Luigi lets the intrusive thoughts take over. There are several moments throughout the game where Luigi logic sparks, and he'll cook up solutions to a problem in his own Luigi way. Now, normally, it would be very AAA of them to have a cutscene do all the thinking for you, but here it's something worth watching play out. I just like the idea of Luigi living on a completely different wavelength than everyone else. But for this island, man, he really gotta tone down the performativeness. There's like 4 Luigi logic cutscenes. One of them is for this situation.
Whoa, wait a second, Mario. I just had the best idea ever. So, hear me out. I grab the green coins with the L on them, and you grab the red coins with the M on them. Eh? What do you think, Cabro? Eh? Luigi? That is the best fucking idea I've ever heard. Let's do.
Thankfully, they tone these down a lot later in the game, but it's not without the charm wearing off a little bit. This is also where you grow more accustomed to the battles. The main idea of battle in Mario and Luigi was that Mario would act with the A button and Luigi with the B button. In Brothership, they combined these two actions by having one brother support the other's attack. These new base attacks feel refreshing at first, but this sequence also starts to feel a little stale after a while. It takes way too long for the battles to actually get juicy. In this beginning chapter, you have to deal with the game drip feeding you new battle moves. For the first 2-ish hours, all you can do is jump attack. Only then will they give you hammers to play around with, and then finally you get your first bros attack like 5 hours in. In Bowser's Inside Story, you get all of this within the first hour. And for all that time when you're stuck with the bare bones, these areas are packed with a dozen or so enemies to fight, with only 2 unique kinds for each island. Even that's being generous. This one island has these things called bumbleshoots, and then another island also has bumbleshoots, except they're blue. That's their attack. You don't have to fight each and every one, of course, but fighting most of them helps you stay ahead of the level curve, and ignore too many of them, you'll be lagging behind it. So doing battles even at a moderate pace can get a little monotonous. Speaking of lag, here's something that makes the flow of everything miles worse. Performance. One of the biggest critiques that Brothership got was how the performance would be very questionable at times, and I remember feeling that a lot in my first playthrough. In more taxing areas, it really felt like I was on Tier Maker where they assault you with 5 ads at once. The biggest victim is Shipshape Island. Since it's a hub world that grows more populated as you progress the story, on top of when you get to sail the ocean faster, the frame rate only gets worse. However, during my second playthrough for this video, I never got close to feeling that way. Loading times felt more brief, frame rate was more consistent. I was starting to think that maybe this was all overblown. It's just those darn kids in their TikTok brains. No, yeah, it somehow went over my head that now I'm playing this on a Switch too. And running Switch 1 games on it has them benefit from the console's beefier performance. Not Zelda though, that was $10. Why is that?
Guidance activating. Proceed north.
Nobody's using this shit, bro. So I thought in order for me to get the full perspective, I thought I should go back and play a few hours of this game on the Switch 1, and...
Oh yeah.
Merry fucking Christmas. How did I ever put up with this? I timed the loading screens and it takes about 5 seconds to enter a battle and then about 7 exiting a battle. I may sound over dramatic like it's just a couple seconds between the action, but that shit adds up when you'll be engaging with 100 or so enemies in total. Now I am glad they patched all this in the Switch 2 upgrade. All the loading times are less than half as long. It feels great. But that doesn't mean the Switch 1 version, the state in which it was released, is irrelevant now. The Switch 1 player base won't be phased out for a very long time, and the Switch 2 isn't exactly the most accessible at the moment, and it does not look like it'll be getting any better soon. So if anything, I find the original Switch 1 edition more relevant. So the performance issues there is still worth pointing out. It really is something too hard to ignore, and while I didn't suffer from it this time, I remember that holding back my enjoyment on the Switch 1 a good amount. But let's get back to right after we defaced a historical landmark. Basically, we have to use the big plugs from these lighthouses to hook them up to our ship and connect parts of the land together. Right when we get back though, there's already some commotion going on at the beach. There's this kid trapped inside what I like to think is one of those metal water bottles that make a funny noise when you throw it at someone. The live reaction from this random guy tells us all we need to know. We are not getting this thing open. But Wilma drops by and says that we could break this thing with some hammers that can be made by one of her kids. Build it and make it. So, there's a lot of puns and wordplay in Brothership. Mario and Luigi is no stranger to that, but they sure had a field day here, with almost every character, location, and terminology being something cheeky. And for me, it's hit or miss. Like, build it and make it, that's cute. I wish I came up with that. But, All Sand Island? Rainforest? What's the joke? You just spelled rainforest like it's an Xbox Live tag. It's one of the dumbest things that gave me psychic damage. Anyways, we'll find build it on Rainforest Island and make it on Twisty Island. We just need one of them to make us hammers and pick up the other one after, but whoever you choose first will set up an equipment shop on your island, with Build It specializing in gloves and Make It in accessories. In short, these are sort of your extra gear slots that give you special effects in battle. This is the first of many points of a branching narrative, albeit pretty minor ones. There are short branches that will converge back into the one linear path. Still, I like how they played around with it. Like, your choices make as much impact as they do in Minecraft story mode. I'm not expecting Mario to have a whole weird route either. It's simply fun to give the player a choice on how things play out, and it encourages replayability. In this first case, it's basically asking, who would you rather sit next to on a 10-hour flight? This guy who yells a lot like a TikTok news anchor, or this girl who's a poet and definitely knows it?
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking place.
Last time I commissioned Make It, so this time I'm going with Build It. So first we're heading to Rainforest. This island really comes and goes. It's short, and the most memorable thing to me were these lizard guys. I just think it's kind of cool how they disappear in the middle of their attack, so you got a picture where they are. Apart from meeting this guy, obviously, this is also where we rescue a couple of toads, hinting that we may find some other familiar faces from the Mushroom Kingdom out there. The puzzles here are fairly decent, but I always found this bit of passing the block to Luigi so janky, like... Are we being for real? Twisty Island though, this one's my shit. It feels so energetic from the lively community, the tropical locale, and that groovy ass music. I've had this track on loop many occasions, it's such an earworm. It's also a nice place to walk around in, with the shading of the forest and all the river streams you pass by. We need to get to Make It in the Lighthouse using this beanstalk called a Twisty Sprout that only grows from good vibes. This guy called the Groove Master seems to be the life of the party, but since his barber fucked up, he ain't dancing until we get some special hair gel from the shop in the forest. This leads to us finding the shopkeeper in the forest, but she's creeped out by all these worms, so we gotta escort her around them. At first, I didn't know that the worms were specifically designed for this quest, so I thought they were an enemy and I tried to fight them, only for them to just give me this slow head tilt. God damn, the judgmental worm. After getting his hair nice and slick, we help spread the good vibes for the Twisty Sprout through our first rhythm game section. This first one's very easy, but more appear throughout the game and they ramp up in difficulty. With the last one, whew, you might mess up like twice maybe. There's never a dull moment in Twisty Island, apart from the battles that are still lacking the sauce. This would be my favorite island, just behind one we won't get to until much later. After you get one of the kids to make you hammers, not only do you finally get something new to use in battles, you can also break open that weird capsule on the beach. We free this kid named Ark, who's a sea charter. He gives us all these tips and tricks on how to sail the ocean currents, but he's also stressing about how one of the great lighthouses got taken over by some evil force. Basically, the 4 great lighthouses are what do all the heavy lifting when it comes to keeping the land together. Also, yeah, we're kind of kept out of the loop of what's going on at this part of the game. All we know is that something tore the land apart and we gotta reconnect it. We only learn about what caused it, who's behind the evil scheme, and what they are planning to do next over the course of the game. And honestly, I really like this type of story progression. Rather than info dumping everything in the prologue, learning the details of the evil plot as we go along keeps things interesting, and it has the tension rise as you progress when the gravity of the situation is felt more and more. Heading to the first great lighthouse is our primary goal, but there's other things we gotta gotta take care of first. There seems to be some shit going down on Rumbla Island. Everyone's artwork got smashed up by this guy named Rumbla, who's upset because everyone ignores him. I think we found the man behind Toon Souls. Must be honored to be the first mini-boss. This is when the attacks get more excessive, so you have to pay more attention to the telegraphing. This is also the first time where Luigi logic gets to shine in battle. Luigi tries to launch this rock at him, but he catches it, so Mario's gotta knock it back at him using the hammer. I love the goofiness and cinematics that Luigi logic brings to the boss fights, and this is only the start. Once we do a number on Toon Souls, Wilma steps in to give him a piece of her mind, and it turns out he's her nephew. Man, I swear, it's always the nephews causing a stink. And she is not taking his bullshit excuse. She fucking annihilates nephew into the stratosphere. With that ordeal out of the way, we can head back to Shipshape, where Ark wants to tell us more about what he knows. When the land was splitting apart, he was with his dad, Patriarch, cute little pun there, until they got taken away by some birds to a great lighthouse. In the process, he got separated from his dad and got trapped in that Stanley Cup. Here you can do an optional quest to find Ark's missing spyglass that had a lot of sentimental value to him, and delivering it to him allows you to see a flashback of their last moments before getting kidnapped. Patriarch has a pretty heartfelt speech of being real with the situation with his son, but also encouraging him to keep his chin up. In just one cutscene, they managed to show how meaningful their bond is, so I can't even imagine how heartwarming it will be when we see them reunite. I hope the writers don't forget about such a heartfelt plotline.
Why are you fucking laughing, man? Oh my god. I'm not laughing.
Next on the docket is the search for another island to connect, which we find to be Florall Island, with 2 L's. They just gave up. Nothing too riveting here. I mean, every Mario game is legally obligated to have a grass level, but I like the serenity here. You got a bright sun and petals flowing in the wind. It's very relaxing. Even the gear is promoting having a picnic here. One criticism I've heard that I can't get behind is that all the islands in the sea feel too samey. Like you visit a grassy, mountainy place, then a rainforest, then a grassland. They're all different, but under a grass-themed umbrella. This continues in the next sea with desert areas, and then the next with a fire and ice fusion. But first of all, I think they're different enough to not feel samey. And second of all, I think that's the point. It shows how these used to be connected in a larger biome, but are now only segments of one that we have to stitch back together. They could look more different, sure, but I don't think the vision of a connected world would be as convincing. There is one thing that's a little annoying about this island. There's so much Seedle! Like, damn, they are infesting the overworld, and they come in such large packs. I think the reason why they come in swarms here is that right before this island you get your first bros attacks. Red shell for Mario and green shell for Luigi. The red shell does a lot of damage on one enemy, while the green spreads damage to multiple. So this abundance of Seedles are meant to be test dummies, but I still find them a little excessive. They could kill for some more enemy variety. We also learn our first bros move in the form of a field ability. How it works is that we hold our hands like we're ready to tango, and then spin each other around to form a UFO. You know, Mario is a very good brother for going through with Luigi's ideas. I would look at him like he's a freak. Apart from the Seedle infestation, Florall Island is pretty easygoing. It's fun bouncing around with these flower trampolines.
Luigi! Yahoo! Let's go!
So you might be wondering what the fuck just happened there. I think it's time to talk about Luigi. As I said before, the Mario and Luigi games are unique from how you control 2 characters as a unit, and the brothers equally feel like the player character. In Brothership, not so much. When it comes to overworld movement, it feels like Mario is the player character, and Luigi is more like any RPG party member who follows behind you. He still has his own jump and hammer buttons, but you definitely don't need them in this orientation. Because for one, now he automatically jumps after Mario, and second, the whole Luigi logic mechanic also serves as Luigi's AI behavior. You can send Luigi to these green glowing spots where he can do things independently, like break boxes, pull turnips, and so on. And I actually like this mechanic. You can get busy work done at twice the rate, and it has its own potential for puzzle design. I just wish the trade-off wasn't a near fully automated Luigi, when I found it pretty novel how he was the other half of the player character. But because of how many possibilities this new system opens up, I think it's the type of change that I'm willing to embrace. If they didn't make him a nuisance, they couldn't even commit to making him a tag-along, because even though Mario is the one taking the lead, if Luigi falls too far behind, which is often from his AI missing a jump or something, he starts going
Mario! Luigi!
and they take control away from you for Mario to run back to where he is. Excuse me? I actually can't believe this was consciously programmed and playtested. I just don't get it. Why does Lucas have to be an anchor that drags me down? Why can't he just teleport to me? See, this is why I like Koops. When I push Koops in the water, he knows I don't wait for anybody. He's gonna crawl back here sopping wet like a man. It's baffling, like it only happened a few times, but the fact that it's a thing that they've deliberately designed is what messes with me. Apart from that tangent, I'm pretty mixed on how they change Luigi here. I find his free will both a blessing and a curse. It does increase the overall efficiency of things, but it also makes part of the action automated when the original novelty came from controlling two at once. At best, he's a good house cleaner, but at worst, he's someone I have to babysit. Once we connect Florall Island, it's time to make preparations for that great lighthouse. We gotta get Connie first since we need a Wadness to restore the lighthouse's power. We find her in the middle of her own flashback where we get to learn about her mentor Cosette, who is also missing somewhere. There are multiple of these flashbacks and they're meant to give us insight on who Cosette was like. Being an A-grade Wadness, that makes her the biggest advocate for the power of friendship, even when it comes to picking flowers. But now that she's gotten enough air, it's time to head off to the great lighthouse of the Lushgreen Sea, the first of the big four in Concordia, and they sort of blend together in my head. I suppose this one is one of the more memorable ones. It's got this one part where Mario goes across these platforms while Luigi hits a switch to move them around. One of the better uses of their asynchronous behavior. Seeing some enemies return from Dream Team was pretty sick. I think the references to past games were implemented in good taste here. They don't feel forced. This mostly comes in the form of returning enemies. I like the ones that are variations instead of one-to-one the same. Like the crowed enemies are new skins of the Treevils from Bowser's Inside Story, but instead of being trees, they're rusty metal pipes. The other forms they take is with these reefs you can spot throughout the ocean, and you can exchange marking these reefs for rewards from is a rock. Y'all will be the death of me, I swear to God. Some of these reefs include the goat Brokemon Shore, the washed goat Zkeeper, the fruity goat Prince Peasley. It's best to make your fan service like Easter eggs or appropriate connections, instead of being all in your face and having Starlo be like, hey Peter, remember the time? The dungeon part of the lighthouses are okay to me. What I'm really here for is the bosses. We walk into some freaky shit going on with this plant monster named Goblick. These three weirdos are feeding them these evil light bulbs, which all that glass has to be bad for your teeth. They're not gonna waste time with introductions though, they just sick Goblick right onto us. I feel like I'm repeating myself from Origami King, but the boss fights in Brothership are so fucking fun. Their large health bars push you to pull off as many bros moves as you possibly can, and the whole deal with bros attacks are that they're high skill with high return. Combine that with how strong the bosses are, and how some of their attacks are difficult to counter, there's a lot of tension throughout. And around the halfway mark when Luigi starts taking initiative and uses the environment to expose the boss's weak point, it's so fun to watch these moments where he pops off. This is one of the weaker bosses because we're still in the midst of growing pains, but some of those bosses in the late game really get that adrenaline running. Brothership is home to some of the peakest bosses in the whole series. Still, this one puts up a decent fight as the first major boss. After mopping the floor with him, we find a log from Ark's dad that gives us some insight into what's happening around here. Apparently those evil guys from before are collecting these things called spite bulbs, which are created from negative energy or something. Gonna keep tabs on that. For now, let's get Connie to do her Watness stuff on this lighthouse. Oh, those two are fucking blind for life. Jokes aside, I really love these cutscenes when you power a great lighthouse. It's really wholesome the way they celebrate, and you get a recap on the progress you've made with restoring the land, paired with a super triumphant soundtrack. The lighthouse opens a current to the next part of the ocean, the colorful sea, so that puts a close to this Lushgreen Sea chapter. The beginning of Brothership moves at a crawling pace. The Lushgreen Sea is about 7 hours long, and throughout they evolve the mechanics through small doses that are far apart from each other. I think it gets a lot more engaging from here, but when first impressions are everything, it's no wonder why this didn't stick for a lot of people, and led to some dismissing the game as a whole. Now, I'm pretty iffy when it comes to making final judgments that early, because this first part doesn't do the entire game justice, but at the same time I can't fault them too much for leaving it there, because if someone cooks you unseasoned chicken that night, you wouldn't want to stick around for their cooking tomorrow night. You might get salmonella. I would encourage those who weren't interested at first to let it simmer until you get to the good stuff, but if it ends up being so boring you've lost any motivation to continue, I can only blame the game at that point. Oh well, at least you can listen to me talk about the rest of it. I like how each sea has different colors for the sky and the ocean. My favorite is the one of grape juice, but sadly we're not there yet. Almost immediately we find a second great lighthouse, but it doesn't look like we'll be getting in. That shit's locked up like the Scientology building. So the plan is we'll just continue linking islands and figure it out as we go along. Our first stop is Desolatt Island. I like the scrapyard village sort of vibe going on here, but it could do without all the birds swooping down and kidnapping people. It's not long until we run into these kids who claim they're the resident heroes. Together they go by IDOL, which is an acronym of each of their names. You got the girl boss, Irene, the scrawny kid, Doles, the hothead, Lug, and Ello. He's fat. Anyways, he's my favorite one. Also, imagine being pregnant for 9 months just to call your child Lug. Or Doles. Snoutlet and the brothers aren't putting up with these kids, they just want to do their job. But they need to test us before showing us to the lighthouse, so we gotta play hide and seek with them in order to prove we're good at walking, I don't know. These 4 become mainstays after finishing this island. They felt like generic troublemaking kids at first, but they start to grow on me after enough screen time. Although I can't help but be reminded of these other kids. So one day I was treating myself to some In-N-Out, and a fun little fact is that with the order numbers, they skip over 69, and then recently 67, due to how much that number sends people into frenzies. So one time when I was just eating my food there, the table next to me had these kids screeching for half an hour. They're being all like, please bring back 6-7, please say it. An employee walks by and they're like, come on, please, you have them say 6-7. I bring this up because those 4 kids had the exact same genders and body types as the IDOL kids. So now whenever I see IDOL, I think about the In-N-Out 6-7 kids and I start chuckling like a moron. I find it funny that Luke is that one motherfucker during hide and seek who's like, oh, how did you find us? Bro, come on out, they found us. And then they rat out the other person hiding somewhere completely different. After finding them all, they open the gate to the lighthouse, where we bump into those weird guys from before. Here they announce that they are the heads of the extension core, as in they're literally the extension to their mastermind's plans. You're not gonna believe what their names are. You're not ready for this. Say hello to X, 10, and Shun. We might have found the Shakespeare of our times, and they worked on Mario and Luigi Brothership. Their designs are actually clever though. Each of them are based on different electrical connectors. X is an Ethernet connector, 10 is a headphone jack and it makes him look like he has one of those punk hairstyles, and Shun is one of those VGA adapters. I definitely know what that is. The mastermind himself stops for a visit to see who's been messing with his plans face to face. His name is Zokket and he's all about isolation and solitude. You know, nobody understands him and shit. He's definitely one of those people whose Discord bio is a poem. My favorite part about Zokket is how he can't get anyone's names right. Like when he calls these guys like Stinker Core and shit like that. I love how polite they try to correct him, only for him to keep getting it wrong again. Apart from cooking some fire slander names, it's also effective at showing just how little he cares about engaging with people when he doesn't even bother to remember names. It's both funny yet a significant character trait of his, to show just how much he resents being around people. Ted insists on dealing with us while the others take their leave. His fight has a lot of character. He's all about being a show-off and looking as cool and glamorous as possible. He claims to be the brains of the 3, and I love how it's blatantly not true. He might be the stupidest, in fact, because once he escapes, he accidentally drops these important items for us to take. He immediately comes back down and is like, bro, that's mine, give it back. Bro had himself take 2 L's in one sitting. But honestly, I should be thanking him, because the items in question are these things called battle plugs and power taps. Remember when I said the battles in this game take a long time to get good? Well, this is where the magic happens. This battle plug system is what takes these battles from underwhelming to the most satisfying and stimulating in any Mario RPG. So you know how the badges worked in the classic Paper Mario games? When you equip them using a certain amount of badge points, and then it gives you all sorts of special effects in battle? Well, battle plugs are like that, but way more flexible and spontaneous. You connect these battle plugs into their slots called power taps, which you start with 2 of them and get more as you progress, that insert all kind of additional mechanics to the battle. The surprise Iron Ball plug can give you that extra chunk of damage you need if the enemy is one-tapped, or if the enemy hits like a truck, you can plug in damage shield to make it less painful. Those automatic item plugs can really come in clutch. As soon as someone needs it, they'll use an item without that counting as their turn. What also comes in handy are the specialist plugs that will deal critical hits on certain types of enemies. There's also some that offer more of a risk reward than a simple buff. One of my favorites being Bro's Boost, that makes damage from Bro's attacks even stronger, but doubles the cost of them. You create battle plugs by collecting sprite bulbs nesting across the islands, and crafting battle plugs is how you unlock even more. And man, some of those late game battle plugs don't even sound real. I was in shock reading some of those descriptions. Boomerang items feels illegal. Now, using these by themselves themselves are already nifty, but seeing the chemistry they have when they're used together, that is where I'm 200% sold. If you have the Iron Ball plugged in alongside Kaboom Attack, which creates spread damage, it will have an Iron Ball drop on every enemy victim of that spread damage. And if you have the room for it, you can also combine that with elemental powers or a critical hit plug. If you're stacked enough, you could pretty much screen wipe with 1 or 2 jump attacks. The power trips you feel from these plugs are real. In addition, you can change your plugs on any turn. It allows you to adapt your strategy to your changing situation. Maybe one turn I want to commit to making me as strong as possible, and if I'm in a tight spot, I can swap them out with stuff that will make healing more efficient. With how broken this sounds, there has to be some restraint. Once a plug gets activated, that uses up a charge, and they'll unplug once they reach 0 and can't be used again until they're fully recharged, which happens throughout turns in battle. This makes for some interesting resource management, but at the same time reveals this mechanic's only inconvenience. You can only recharge them after they are depleted. So let's say I'm about to face a tough boss where I want an ideal set of plugs, but some of them are partially or fully used up. So what I could do is go out of my way to reset them by grinding random enemies, using up their charges and waiting for them to be recharged again. Doesn't sound very fun if you ask me. Or I could just suck it up and work with what I can currently use, which I guess that does force the player to be more flexible, but I think there should be a way to recharge everything that's just convenient enough. I think it could have easily been an additional effect of those healing blocks. That would be the only thing I fixed. Apart from that, they took the Mario and Luigi battle system that was already fun with its action focus, added a whole layer of strategy and chemistry, and now you have one of the best turn-based combat systems you'll ever play. Yo, no way, it's Starlo. It's freaking Starlo, everyone's favorite emoji. It was pretty cool they had this character that stuck around for multiple games, acting as their companion or sort of communicator since the brothers can't fully speak. And she lives on even after all these years. Although since we already have Snoutlet for a partner, all she does here is tell us that Princess Peach also wound up in Concordia, and she's stuck in this place called Merrygo Island. So pretty much she's just here to let us know where to go next, but I'm sure she'll have her time to shine. She's not gonna do shit, is she? Whatever, let's go find this Merrygo place. This island's built around an amusement park, with this funhouse maze being the centerpiece. And once you get to the middle, you have to shift the walls in order to get to different exits. Scary Maze got nothing on this. Whoa, dude, no way, that's the entrance? I feel like I'm being talked down to. Oh, it's pretty hard for beginners. Come on, game, I'm not stupid, I'll be fine. Help. Since the hallways are so linear, the enemies are basically unavoidable, so I'm thankful the battle plugs were just introduced to keep these entertaining. Well, we got out of one side of the maze, and we hear someone named question mark calling for us. And there's only one person I know who's associated with 3 question marks. Maybe it's her code name. Wait, why the fuck is she here? Finding the proper exit to the maze gives us a chance to fight more of those snapters that are kidnapping people. This catches the attention of this girl named Technicky. As the name implies, she's a big nerd who's all about making doodads and gizmos. Right now, she's looking into ways to get rid of those snapters. And seeing that we have a similar goal, she decides to join us on Shipshape once we connect this island. But first things first, we gotta pick up what we came here for. I feel like they made this island for Saberspark.
New cartoon crush unlocked!
All the scenes for a while are basically Mario and Luigi letting Peach in on the Concordia situation, which is indeed crazy, and having her meet with all the characters so far. Also, Starlo exists. We all gather for a strategy meeting to figure out how we're gonna deal with the snapters. We don't have any leads on where they're taking people, so Peach has the idea to get kidnapped on purpose as a plan to gather inside information. The only thing is that nobody wants her to do it, because we literally just found her, and start arguing about who should take her place. But then once Luigi volunteers unknowingly, everyone is like, that works. We won't miss him. It comes down to Mario's decision, and this is our next choice in the narrative. Do we want to send off Peach or Luigi to be kidnapped? And it's a fun idea, I like this on paper, but with that said, I gotta get nitpicky. I find both routes intriguing as a concept. Volunteering Peach to get kidnapped is pretty cheeky. The fate she always ends up in is now being used to her advantage, but sending out Luigi feels like a significant moment for him too. In the beginning, he couldn't handle being 6 feet away from Mario, so this would be like a test for him. You can also see this where if you do choose him, there's a scene of him being too scared to go off the plan. So it's also like his character arc of manning up. I think either choice is a strong moment in the story. It's how they affect the game that confuses me. The dilemma here there is that if we choose Peach, we won't have first-hand experience on the B side of this mission, but we will with Luigi since he's a playable character. This also determines if you'll be playing the A side of the mission with both brothers or only Mario. And I don't know, this dichotomy doesn't work for me. Like, they're asking if I want to actually see the inside of the operation, or just have Peach info dump on us where we basically see the same cutscene through a flashback.
Okay.
The former obviously sounds more interesting to me, so I just take the Luigi path, right? I thought I made a sound decision. That is until minutes later after you two get separated, Technicky is like, hey, you want some bros moves? And then immediately she's like, oh fuck. Wait, he's not here, my bad. So you just kind of hang on to these until you get Luigi back, and then you can actually use them. Reminder, we've been stuck with these shells as our only bros move since the last sea. Also, you get robbed of Luigi's landing sequence onto Lottacoins Island, which is by far the best one. Both of these routes have their downsides, but not in a strategic way. It feels more like a lose-lose situation. Either you don't get to experience part of the mission, or you don't get to play with your shiny new toys. Again, it's still pretty neat how you can influence the story at all, but I felt like they put the wrong things at stake. I'd preferred if I chose how to make the heist more interesting, not less. Despite that part feeling like Bummersville, when you actually get to the mission of infiltrating Lottacoins Island, it's actually really good stuff. There's more of a focus on puzzles and investigating, and trying to get around the building security. I like this bit where the idle kids try to distract the security guard and try to smuggle Mario through the hallway. This was around where they started to warm up on me. The highlight is deciphering the passcode for the jail cell. It really felt like an escape room. It's not as simple as finding the code on a sheet of paper. There's some patterns to analyze, there's some math to solve. It requires some thorough searching. It's a lot of fun hunting them down. You also learn a new field ability here with the Bro Ball, but honestly, it isn't all that fun to use until it gets upgraded later. Our mission gets thrown off when one of the kids get abducted by the Extension Corps. I'm sorry. Imagine someone smacking a child and yelling blammo. This ends with a mini-boss with this Mega Snapter. Not much to say about this one apart from it's a good opportunity to flex your new bros moves. Catch Me While You Can has the 2-play volleyball with a surprise Yoshi cameo, and the Zapparator has Mario and Luigi throw it back. The Extension Corps got away from us again, but at least we got some info from the prisoners. Apparently they're kidnapping people to have them work on this substance called Glohm, but that's about the extent of our knowledge. Now we're back to dealing with that wall over the Great Lighthouse. Technicky plans to blow it up with a rocket, but it needs this special oil that's found in this deserty place. So we're gonna set sail for that now. I guess I haven't talked about how the sailing works yet, and considering it's a big part of the gameplay loop, I should probably do that right now. The ocean travel is designed to feel more immersive. You open your sea chart to select the ocean currents you want to travel to, and then you sail across that route in real time. It's meant to really feel like you're searching this vast ocean for new islands to explore. And I love me some LARPing, but what's going to make or break this for the player is how it comes at the cost of convenience. At the start, the ship moves a lot slower than you might prefer. You unlock faster sailing right before the first Great Lighthouse. It comes at the perfect time when travel starts to get longer, and it's a much needed boost in speed, but if your destination is like 2 seas apart, your hair is still going to be turning gray. You only get the ability to jump to any current by the time you're pretty much done with sailing anyways. I think some players will assume that they have to just fuck around on the ship until they have their destination in sight, but this part's not actually meant to be filler. It's meant to be your time frame for maintenance and house cleaning. You can take this time to stock up on items, upgrade your gear, or revisit any of the islands you link to explore places you missed, and collect more sprite bulbs to make battle plugs. Also, while you're sailing through currents, you may stumble upon an islet, which is a bite-sized island that's just one small area. Some of them are monster dens where you get some good loot, some of these are obstacle courses with a prize waiting at the end, and some of these small side quests or minigames to do, to which you also get some pretty neat stuff. The ship still moves while you're here, so these are another thing to keep you busy and grab some items before you get to your actual stop. But even if you're caught up on everything, they made extra sure that you won't be bored while sailing, because there are a shit ton of side quests. Like, several of these pop up after every beat of the story. Now, I do respect them going the extra mile with world building here. They add more background to the secondary characters, like there's a side story about family conflict between Wilma and her kids. They also give character to the NPCs you would normally walk by, like this one mom whose son ran off because she told him he needs to get a job. Some of them are even optional subplots of the main story, so you can pursue them if you're invested, but you can also easily move past them if you're not. I appreciate the extra care they put into this world, so it's a shame that they're just really boring. Any side quest that has more than one step is basically a fetch quest. You know, this guy lost his thingamagoober, now you gotta go to Wyoming and find it.
Untangle my phone cord.
Do my geometry.
Talk to my plan.
There's a toad on All Sand Island. What business could they have on the extremely sandy island? What? That's not my business. He can do what he wants. It's as point A to point B as one possibly gets, and despite the occasional funny plotline, the gameplay is white noise. Okay, we'll admit that's a bit of a blanket statement. Not all of them are boring. In fact, some of the quests are something you cannot afford to miss.
We never found out it was in that box, huh?
Here, your reward.
Magnificent.
Oh no! Oh no!
It's case by case, but from what I've sampled, they miss significantly more than they hit. It doesn't help that the maps aren't super fun to explore, especially if they require looking for a specific islet somewhere in the sea. In that case, when your current priority is that side quest, then you're just waiting around until you get to that islet. Unless you want to do another side quest during this, but at that point I feel like we're juggling too many pins. Oh yeah, and some of them are time sensitive, where they'll disappear after a certain point of the story. I know that sounds absurd, but like, I don't think it's a big deal. If you're really invested in completion, you would be doing these quests as soon as they appear anyways. Plus, they are very clear about when they're expiring soon. The only side quest that I'm down for is where you refight bosses and they're way stronger. If you thought I loved the regular bosses for their tension, imagine how I feel about these. Hits me like crack cocaine. But the other 97% or so of the side quests I don't find at all compelling. And it makes the sailing routine as a whole less compelling, when these are expected to fill in the gaps. I love this idea on paper, but I think it's inevitable that it won't always work in practice, because not every player will understand how it works or care for the side content, but for me, it works well enough. On the contrary, All Sand Island is pretty straightforward. There's a lot more action and platforming here, with jumping across quicksand and trying not to get caught by those bony shark things from Superstar Saga. I don't know what's up with all these fish that want to get into our pants. This has one of my favorite Luigi logic moments, where he uses himself as bait to distract the sharks while Mario gets to the oil reserve. Okay, guys, I swear I'm good at this game. That was just a flub.
There go another player tip. You gotta kill yourself.
Alright, we got the oil. Let's get back to Technicky and get that rocket fired up. Well, first, Zokket decides to pay a visit for some shit talking, saying that her tree looks like ass and that nothing ever happens. And reasonably, everyone tells him to fuck off. That was not 3 minutes. That was like a minute and a half. We still got time to talk about your fucking has-been hotel-ass fit.
Bitch.
There's one problem with our missile. The trajectory is all wonky, so someone's gotta pilot the missile to have it hit the wall. The idle kids decide to step up, seeing this as their big chance to finally do some good. I find it wild how there was like no pushback from the idea of blowing up kids. Okay, I know this sounds dense, like they obviously wouldn't do this. I deadass thought these kids died. Yeah, no data apart from the fucking explosion. Elo is painted all over the wall. There's pieces of lug in the ocean. But yeah, once we get through the wall, Idol is confirmed to be okay. Somehow. Now to head inside the second great lighthouse. It seems to have been repurposed into a warehouse where the kidnapped people are forced to work. We still don't know exactly what for yet. So far we've just heard this thing called Glohm pass around. We also got the old-fashioned stealth section, where we gotta stay out of the security's flashlights. Luigi gets the idea of getting inside a barrel to get attention away from Mario. This type of stealth section has become a tired trope by now, but the whole barrel stuff makes it feel unique here. Not to mention another cute callback to Superstar Saga. The extension core unleashes another evil energy-filled monster at us named Shark Cask, and this boss is 10 times more fun than the last. You actually gotta lock in this time. I remember this one move where he's holding the metal crate giving me trouble at first. I didn't know you had to hit him while he's winding back. If you get him while he's leaning forward, a concussion awaits. But that Luigi logic sequence is mint. When Shark Cask goes into his defense mode, Luigi goes and screws around with the conveyor, and you gotta crush him with all the falling crates. And just watching him eat shit as he tumbles down the conveyor belts is cinema. X comes in to buff the dude up a little bit, but unfortunately we don't actually fight him. In fact, we don't actually fight the extension core for a really long time. In almost every encounter, they just yap about their evil deeds and either hide behind some big beast or run away. I guess that's part of their character, they're cowardly and all that, but still, it's a bummer that the several times you encounter these guys, it's just for show and tell rather than an actual face-off against them. But that won't stop me from loving this boss fight, and after dealing with them, the Great Lighthouse is ours for the taking. With 2 lighthouses down and 2 to go, go. You might assume this is the halfway point, but I'd say we're more like 2/5. Things get more unorthodox down the line. After this, Idle decides to head off on their own adventure, with Peach and Starlo joining their team. Even if we're gonna part ways for a while, I think they all put a good effort with us. Idle almost killed themselves to blow up a wall, Peach helped with the kidnapping operation, and Starlo breathed oxygen. The first island we find here is Bulbfish Island. Already the vibes are off here. People are up in a fizz about stolen fish eggs. Some of the residents are acting weird with this evil red aura. And then there's these two that are like that one couple in the high school hallways that block your way to biology class. Their names are Chilium and Bernadette, and they're on the run since their rivaling nations don't approve of their relationship. We'll have to put a pin in that whole can of beans, because the chief of the village, Layden, assigned us to catch the thief of the bulbfish eggs, and he'll only let us use the lighthouse once we catch them. So this island's gonna be a mystery episode. That's something I like about the island-to-island pacing. It gives the game this episodic structure that takes us through all kinds of subplots. It makes it kind of feel like an anime. Like in the previous episode, the gang breaks into the enemy base. And in this one, the Mario Brothers and Snoutlet do detective work. Tune in next time where we defeat racism. You get some leads from nearby gossip, but from there, it requires a thorough searching of the village to get additional clues. This is one of the longer islands in the game, but I think it's well earned when it allows the case of the stolen eggs to have a lot of room for speculation. Our investigation leads us to this basement, but it's being guarded by this person assigned by the chief's assistant. Since he's a big fan of justice, he'll let us through if he tests us with a few questions. Question 1. Who is the most suspected? Well, there was a bunch of people rioting in front of Layden's house, and he literally had to yell, "I'm innocent," so probably him. Question 2. What is not a major rule of Bulbfish Island? Don't drop the soap. Question 3. Show me what you found under the useless light. The soap. Now, I would take the L on this, but I have beef with that first question. Layden is apparently not the biggest suspect. It's that strange couple from before. There was like a whole witch trial in front of his house, and I only heard like a few people blame the couple. Also, what do you mean by strange couple? Is it because they're mixed race? Come on. I eventually got the answers right, and after some snooping around in the basement and throwing hands with some bugs, we stumble upon this secret hideout, and with some reading through a secret diary, we find that it belongs to Layden's assistant. He's got a chip on his shoulder from being pushed around by Layden, talking about how he could use the weird resident behavior as an opportunity for something big. It doesn't take long for us to connect the dots, but we're too late for that and the couple ends up being framed. By the assistant no less, so that's extra fishy. So now we gotta go back to the basement, break them out of jail, and clear their name. Oh yeah, this fucker. Say hello to Grampy Turnip, the unfunniest running gag I think I've ever seen. Across multiple islands, one of the turnips you can pull ends up being this guy. They're trying to do the quirky indie RPG thing of wasting your time and spouting bullshit, hoping that you think it's funny. But they wrote this guy with so much dementia, I have no fucking clue what he's saying or what they want me to laugh at. If you actually think these guys are funny, is your favorite cereal Raisin Bran by chance? I didn't even know there was a whole reward program for finding these guys. You have to talk to the golden Grampy Turnip, and if you find all 18, I'm gonna puke. He gives you his glove, which is one of those trade-off status effects. I'm good, bro. Also, I don't know what he's been doing with that glove, and I'd rather not find out. Hey, look. Another thing I like to bitch about. So there's a couple of these number panel puzzles where Mario and Luigi split up to press their color-coded panels in the right order, and I think they're kinda dumb, honestly. You freely control Mario, but the Luigi AI will go to his own panels and will head toward his next one even if it isn't next in the numerical order. So basically, because Luigi doesn't know how to count, you have to run to your panel before he gets to his, or you both fail the sequence. I'm sorry, isn't the whole theme of the game an idea we've been championing is the power of bonds? Yet here we have the supposed unbreakable bond of the Mario Brothers, and are unable to count to 10 together. I'm not asking them to give me control over Luigi, because that would just make them even dumber where you're just counting numbers. I would just scrap this idea entirely and think of something else. I'd like to believe that it's fair not to like these puzzles, but Logan Plant said the same thing in his IGN article, and Mario fans wanted to pour hydrochloric acid on him. We eventually find Shark Boy and Lava Girl's jail cell, not without walking in on them LARPing in this Hallmark movie romance plot. Okay, maybe they are kind of strange. We then have a tussle with some Zokket minions after overhearing something about Glohm experiments. Then we catch Layden's assistant eavesdropping, so we chase after him up to the lighthouse.
Huh? There he is!
fucking out of here.
Once we corner him, he finally folds and admits to stealing the eggs just to spite Layden and make himself the new chief. It's also revealed that they're father and son. Oh my goodness, I never would have guessed. But after talking things out, they're able to reconcile. And by reconcile, I mean... Yeah, get him. Get his ass. Make sure to say blammo. Even though he's ready to turn himself in, everyone just kind of wants him to keep doing his job, since everyone's in agreement that the current chief is an old fart. So that puts a weird close on a very weird case that I thought was pretty neat. Our attention is brought back to Chilium and Bernadette, who plan on getting married, but they can't when their tribes have beef with each other. Their home villages are in Heatfreeze, so we're gonna look for that island next and see if we can squash the beef. This island was the part of the land where the snowy and lava territories met, so it's the ideal spot for the two tribes to shit-talk each other. We're caught in the middle of an argument of whose signature food is better, so we gotta give both of them a taste test to settle whose is better. First, I got some of the hot-tato stew from the Boylan village. As you'd expect, it's very spicy. I like to believe that I've been growing on spicy foods over time. I went to a restaurant the other week and had a jalapeno burger, and this time I didn't cry. Either way, just by how it looks, I don't think the stew is to my taste. Never been a stew enthusiast. This stew though, I like this stew. The potato gelato from the Friesen village though, that shit looks good. The brain freeze could send me to the hospital, but it's gotta be worth it. After trying both of them out, Mario and Luigi just give them the boring fence-sitting answer that both are good when put together. Personally, I would have liked it if you actually had the option to say which one you liked better, but I get the message they're trying to say here. This doesn't bring peace like they were hoping, but at least they're out of the way. Beyond that is the path to the lighthouse, involving some fire and ice themed obstacles. I don't know if it's just me, but the whole wacky theme of combining an ice level with a lava theme is starting to lose its flair. This idea peaked with Freeze Flame Galaxy, not the first to do this, but the best to do it. Other games that do this don't quite hit the same. Like, hold up, you're telling me that I need to melt ice cubes using lava from the lava section? Slow down, Gabe Newell. To give credit, it gives its own little spin on it. Adding the narrative of two rival tribes of fire and ice is something new. Although I can't say I'm all that invested in the actual tribes if it weren't for these two. I don't remember what the Scorchine tribe's whole deal is. I guess they're hot-headed, but both sides seem to have a big chip on their shoulder. And Slip and Glide's whole thing is that they make unfunny puns, and they do this bit several times when you talk to them, and it does not get funnier. We get some surprise visitors when we head back to the ship. The Extension Corps is going to show us firsthand what their Glohm Ray does.
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, but at least we finally know what Glohm even is. It's this substance where if someone gets injected with it, it makes you a shut-in and hate being around other people. But, as seen with the Glohm version of enemies, it also makes you buff as hell, so... win? That explains why they're mass producing this stuff for Zokket, so he can brainwash everyone to share his ideology. We don't know if there's a cure for Glohm, but Connie says there's this guy from Scorchine Island named Dr. Volko who might know what to do. But we also get a call from Idle reporting they found the Extension Corps' research lab on Slip and Glide, so it's up to us to decide what we want to do first. Yet another branching path that kind of makes me like, sure. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. It depends if I'm the only one who thinks curing Chilium and finding the treatment for Glohm to be a much bigger priority than hunting down these goofballs that are just gonna run off again. And I feel like this is confirmed in hindsight, because once we actually get to Slip and Glide and find Ten's research lab, even he admits he knows jack shit. All we get from this is how secretive Zokket is with the Extension Corps. They just do what they're told with limited info. And digging through the research lab, we just read about stuff we already knew. So literally the only reason to come here is for the same reason as every island, which is linking it to our ship. On the contrary, going to Scorchine Island to pick up Dr. Volko actually gives us results, as he already knows that Glohm can be cured with these fruits called amp berries. This feels like more of a fork in the road for the sake of it, and from a gameplay perspective, it does allow things to feel less linear, but when it comes to story progression, it feels very lopsided. I think the choice of what island to go to first worked a lot better back when we had to pick up Build It and Make It, because they're equally important to find, but who you get to first makes a difference. I think how I would change this is that you still pick up Dr. Volko at Scorchine Island, but he says his supply of amp berries was stolen by the Extension Corps, and we could find that supply in Ten's research lab on Slip and Glide Island. It's a small change, but I think it helps both islands feel equally important to our current situation. One of them has the doctor and the other has the supplement, and we need both of them to cure Chilium. Anyways, more about Scorchine Island and Slip and Glide. I'm getting really tired of saying these names. They're pretty much the two halves of Heatfreeze Island as two wholes, and they kind of mirror each other with having similar progression. Each island has you learn an additional ability for your bros moves, a tractor beam for the UFO so you can suck up stuff, and a boost for the bro ball, making it way more fun to use. We also get our first encounters with some of Bowser's minions on these islands, kind of their way of foreshadowing that Bowser is coming. There's a trademark puzzle for each island as well. Scorching has bomb flowers you gotta carry around to blow up some rocks, and Slip and Glide has, what else? Ice sliding puzzles. Very long ones at that. It's weird because a lot of stuff goes on in these areas, but at the same time, they don't stick out very well aesthetically. The last two seas did a good job designing islands that were similar in nature, but had unique set pieces that allowed them to feel unique from each other. With the Brrning Sea though, you got Heatfreeze, a blend of volcano and snowy mountain, and then Scorching Island, which is just more volcano, and then Slip and Glide Island, more snow. They do keep you busy with unique puzzles and obstacles and all that, but when I'm looking at the same sites the whole time, it hurts the engagement a little bit. Could use some more interesting architecture, cultural attractions. Speaking of engagement, after picking up Dr. Volko, he shoves some Tylenol down Chilium's throat, and then he turns back to his good old cornball self. He and Bernadette are so happy to be back, they're like, fuck it, let's get married. Like right now. So all of a sudden we're in charge of planning a wedding. It may seem like we're getting massively sidetracked here, but honestly I find it really sweet how we're putting this before everything. After all, Concordia's culture is about putting connections and bonds above all else, and lovers are one of the deepest kinds of bonds. So this serves as a great demonstration of their mantra, but putting the deeper meaning aside, I just really like how planning a wedding is a story beat. It's nice to stop for a more personal objective. We don't have to be saving the world from destruction all the time. They say we need a cake, a flower crown, and to get both of the chiefs on board. The Extension Corps was eavesdropping on all of this, and Shun speaks up and says leave the scheming to him. There's been this running gag whenever these guys are giving their monologues. Whenever Shun tries to speak, he always gets cut off by someone else who says the same thing. I find this bit pretty funny because like he barely talks as is. It feels like this has been a problem long before and he's just half given up by now. Either it's just poor timing on his part, or it's the other two intentionally being dickheads. Oddly enough, it kind of makes me root for him when he finally gets his time to shine. His plan is to disguise himself as a merchant to lead us into traps, and it's on you to decide if you want to get the wedding items suggested by Connie or to play into Shun's scheme. If you follow him for the flower crown or wedding cake, they'll be like, ah, too late, we already destroyed it, fuck you. But then some guy is like, yeah, we could just make another one of those, and so you get another one of those. Shun, I'm saying this as your friend. You should just continue not talking. There's some trouble getting Chilium's dad on board because he also got hit with the Gloomy goop, but Ark and Connie are saying they'll figure out some way to drag him to the wedding. Spoilers, they beat him with lead pipes. But once we get all that chaos sorted out, it's time for the big day. I truly see this wedding bit as the cornerstone of Brothership. It's where the game wears its heart on its sleeve. You have every character you've met so far gathered in the same place, with spirits at an all-time high. And best of all, the wedding symbolizes the end of the race war.
Mrs. Obama, I've done it. I've stopped racism.
Chilium and Bernadette have been very corny about each other, intentionally so, but that only makes their certification as a couple all the more genuine. Also, we get the honor of being the wedding dancers, like come on.
If I can prove that I never touched my balls, will you promise not to tell another soul what you saw?
I just simultaneously whipped a nene!
The unapologetic joy here is so contagious, you can't help but enjoy your time. It also serves as a nice calm before the storm when the tension only rises after this. All the good vibes are strong enough to clear a path to the third great lighthouse. Well, we gotta wait stuff out for a sec. Connie is getting nostalgic again. Yo, guys, I just had, like, this funny thought. So, like, if you swap out the C and the Z on Cosette's name, doesn't it kind of spell like Zokket? Isn't that funny? I should tell Connie my funny thought. So, in the Brrning Sea's Great Lighthouse, this one just feels like the third lighthouse. Like, we get detained and get separated from Connie, but then we get Connie back after some ass whooping, and then same old lighthouse puzzle stuff. They bring back the sneaky section with the Luigi barrel, but they don't really throw much of a twist on it. It's just more of the same. The only room that stuck out to me was the one of this puzzle. You use the UFO tractor beam to drop these platforms between the rails, and you need to scatter them just enough for you to jump across them and make it to the other side. I think this lighthouse suffers from the same issue as the last two islands, where it's harder for the level design to stick out when it's aesthetically repetitive. At least we get to do a little snooping on a meeting between Zokket and the expansion team. It looks to be somehow worse than we thought. He straight up wants to end everything. This is what having no one to play peek with does to a man. They make it their lifelong mission to erase all friend slop. Shun takes this as another opportunity to show what he's made of, unleashing this goopy monster named Pipe Gunk. This one's another gem. The boss is a cool idea with Shun switching the room between the fire and the ice side, and Pipe Gunk adapting to the temperature, but the Luigi logic magic antics are at an all-time high. I was purely flabbergasted when there was a whole minigame of playing tug-of-war for the control button, and when you throw him off the platform, the way he hollers is rich. Then Luigi has to switch the temperature to the current opposite. You can actually make the wrong choice here, but let's not kid ourselves. I definitely did not mess this up the first time. You cannot prove that. This whole sequence has been living in my head without rent. It's so goofy and creative. Oh my god, look, his cold body is just lying there. Man's fucking dead. I love how well they recaptured Mario and Luigi's iconic slapstick. I'd even say it's at its best here thanks to the animation style. Right, we did get a new pair of bros moves earlier. Jump helmet for Luigi and bomb rally for Mario. These are most often my go-to since they're in that sweet spot of not costing a huge amount of bros points and getting strong enough damage out of them. There will be more powerful and more expensive bros attacks, but that's when I start to fold under pressure sometimes. I think you all know the drill by now of these lighthouses. So my final thoughts on the whole Brrning Sea chapter, I think it's the best one of the story. The mystery of Bulbfish Island was fun to play along with. Chilium and Bernadette and the whole conflict with the two tribes make for a compelling centerpiece. The whole fire and ice motif was done fairly well. The wedding was just lovely, and the boss fight was primetime shenanigans. The game felt like it was in that sweet spot here, where the narrative starts to elevate and the gameplay quality keeps up with it and doesn't start to feel dry. I say all this because I can't quite say the same about the rest of Brothership. I appreciate this all the more when the game after this point starts to slowly fall off in my eyes. It doesn't immediately fall off a cliff, it's more of a slow burner. In fact, it kicks off on a fantastic note because... That's right, we made it to the fucking grape juice! Oh, and also Bowser and Zokket's armies are at war here. I guess that's also important. Okay, this part fucking slays me. He's literally in the middle of an aerial bloodbath, and he just sees Mario in the distance who's not even doing anything, and he's like, hey, kill that fucker. He's a legendary hater, you gotta give him credit. So because he felt like it, he causes the Mario brothers to get thrown overboard, and they wash up on this island named Alphadon. In the background, Bowser's been chilling in this part of the ocean the whole time, and has taken advantage of this isolated community to make himself a celebrity. So obviously, we can't show our face around here as public enemy number one. I didn't realize at first, but when Snowlet asked how they got our mugshots for the wanted posters, it clicked with me that these are supposed to be the pictures they took for our passports in Superstar Saga. You know, where you can make goofy faces? Oh, you rapscallion. I find this a very intriguing direction to take for this chapter, because up to this point, we've been getting glazed by everyone in Concordia, but now we need to work around a community we're not welcome in. The only resident who's trusting is this kid named Buddy, who for some reason I headcanon to be Russian. He has a conflict of interest because on one hand, he doesn't see us as the enemy and wants to help, but he also developed a friendship with Bowser Jr., and obviously he does not vibe with Buddy helping his dad's biggest ops. Plus, he threatens to cut ties if he pulls something like that again. He's a very sweet kid, so it makes me feel a little bad for putting a wedge in what I assume is his only friendship. I think they waited the right amount of time to introduce Bowser and his underlings to the story. They should always play a part in a Mario story in one way or another, but after he stole a title for Final Boss last minute in Dream Team, and he was the only villain in Paper Jam, fucking hell, Paper Jam. If I start, I'll never stop. After the RPGs had so much Bowser in their endgames, they really needed to make him a sidebar or short-term antagonist for this one. They chose the right time to assert these familiar faces, after we've been meeting new ones for the whole game. Plus, there's something amusing about Goombas and Koopas being mid to late game enemies. I also like the way he throws a wrench in our objective. Now we gotta deal with two different forces sneaking up the place. It was around here where I realized, goddamn, I am destroying everyone, like they all go down in like 2 attacks. I don't think it's a sign of the game getting too easy, but like the difficulties falling behind with the player's level. It's just a result of me being hardcore and awesome. I've been going out of my way collecting all the sprite bulbs to unlock all of these spicy battle plugs, as well as a good amount of side content and exploration that gave me the best equipment. So being as strong as I am is the game rewarding me for doing all that. I think feeling overpowered in a game can be a great thing as long as it feels earned. When reaching that power level was a challenge in of itself. We're very lucky that Shipshape was just chilling around, so we can get back there by surfing on the Lighthouse plug. But our luck runs out pretty quickly because the place is a mess from the attack, and Ark tells us that 2 of our islands got disconnected and are drifting out at sea again. So we gotta go find them and reconnect them to the ship again. Are we really doing this? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I actually didn't want to go to new levels. I just want to see what previous levels look like with a Pepto-Bismol skybox. If you couldn't tell by my tone, this is the part I alluded to, where it loses steam. Unfortunately, the grape juice just isn't enough to win me over. The Gulchrock Sea has 2 new islands when all the previous had 4, not including great lighthouses, because wedged in the middle are 2 from before that you need to reclaim. Like, I suppose they have higher stakes now due to their threatened conditions. Twisty Island is overrun by Glohm-powered enemies. Heatfreeze is being terrorized by Bowser's minions. The goal of taking back territory claimed by the enemy is something new, but that's just me being very generous to what is essentially backtracking. Heatfreeze Island, despite us being here like 5 minutes ago, is a little less shameless, because there's new areas that opened up, acting as a playground for the new abilities we get here. These ancient spirits give us the fire and ice flowers in hopes it will reunite their tribes, but when we break the news we already did that with the wedding, they want us to just give it back.
No.
One of them even hits us with the nuh-uh. I will admit this is a good bit. The fire and ice flowers as tools are very basic for the time being. You know, when you see ice, melt with fire. When you see lava, freeze with ice. When you see bald head, give it a slap. But I do like the continuation of these elements that Mario and Luigi get represented by. I like to think there was some foreshadowing back at the food competition, where Mario's favorite was the hot stew and Luigi's was the ice cream. At least this part of the game brings attention to one detail I really like, which is that going back to the islands, you'll find Glohm spreading and infecting more people. It fills the air with urgency when Zokket's plan is actively in effect. But if this phase of backtracking is supposed to show you that, I find that a little forced. It was cooler when I noticed the spread of Glohm on my own accord. It ends up growing to such a degree where the old man's supply of ant berries are running thin. He says they only grow on this remote island, but there's no currents for us to get there. Oh damn, Starlo spoke words! Words that nobody else here could have spoken. They report that they found Bowser's castle on an island that so happens to be the same with the ant berries, so now we're doubly screwed on getting there. Fortunately, Luigi gets another brain blast and has the idea of disguising ourselves, so we can get inside information on how to get to Bowser's. This once again has us going back to another island, but hey, at least we get to dress up as Daft Punk, if they got their costumes from Five Below. We arrive back at Offendon Island at a pretty bad time. We walk in on Bowser giving a whole speech on how he wants us hung by jumper cables. He even almost catches us in the act if it weren't for him being a dumbass. We really need to step up our game and act natural. Hey, Jimmy, it's me, Bosef. Remember me? I sat next to you in geography. So, you guys like Deltarune? Do you think Chapter 6 will confirm haunted diarrhea theory? We get to peep in on a few things. First is an actually wholesome interaction between Buddy and Bowser Jr. It goes to show that they actually do have a good bond. It's just their different viewpoints on the Mario Brothers that divide them. It really is us that's the problem. More importantly, we overhear some Koopas talking about how to get to Bowser's castle by finding this pipe buried around trees. So yeah, we got what we came here for. I think it's time for us to split. Wait a minute. Is that Soylent? Luigi, no! You'll become a Redditor! Well, it sure beats moderating r/mildly infuriating. Well, goddamn, Starlo gets more action in Snoutlet's wet dreams than she does in the actual game. Alright, now we got a prison break sequence. And that means even more stealth. It is fun when you have to run past the guards with the Bro Balls dash move, but with that exception, I can't say I care much about this part. On a different note, we also get some new bros attacks for this mission. Mario gets Clock Out Blow, the closest the brothers ever get to playing God. Like, this dinky stopwatch allows them to bend time and space to their will, all just to completely fuck this one Koopa in particular. I don't know if I'm just dumb, but I tend to screw up Luigi's Yoo-Hoo cannon often. It's never that hard to remember them, but I think combining that with the random order and reaction time scrambles my brain for some reason. I figured out it's because of the perspective, because when I use this same bros attack in Bowser's Inside Story, the more flat perspective makes it easier to memorize the patterns of the Marios and Luigis. We managed to escape with once again the help of Buddy, but you can imagine how Junior feels about this. Brings him to the point where he's like,
"Don't call me. Don't come by my house. We're done."
Alright, we got the information we came here for, but in the process we got thrown in prison and ruined this boy's only friendship. But you know, I'd consider this mission a win. Now we're hunting after all these islets to find the one that matches the description. It's here when I realized that the names of every islet are a quirky misspelling of different synonyms of small, micro, nano, bitsy, and even minor, which is the favorite island of Discord mod. While we're here, I need to call out one island in particular. Infant Islet. What is this nightmare of a pipe maze? Was this actually designed by infants? Gee, I can only imagine the developers meeting when coming up with this one. Oh yeah, this game was made during COVID, so it was more like...
Boy, what the Oh, nah, bro.
We eventually find a pipe buried in the sand that takes us to the island where Bowser's castle is resting in. Oh, look at him. He's mad. That's the look of when your mom is driving you home from school and passes by McDonald's. There's been many iterations of Bowser's Castle throughout Mario and Luigi, so this level could easily feel generic, but oddly enough, it works for me here. Our adventure has taken us through an entirely different landscape so far, and I love it for that, but that makes it refreshing for us to tread on familiar territory after so long. It makes the inclusion of your typical Mario enemies like Boo's and Shy Guy stand out more. It makes them feel more threatening when they're stronger than the local monsters. They end up being some of the trickiest enemies to fight with their attack patterns. I gotta give spotlight to the Shy Guys. They're one of the most fun enemies to fight with how all their attacks are like a game. Even one of them is a reference to Shy Guy Says from Mario Party. Now that's an epic gamer reference right there. The main gimmick of this castle is with these hot air balloon elevators. There's these plugs connected to them that exhaust air, which warming or cooling the air causes the platform to elevate. And I like when you need to work around the elevator by using the roof to get up instead of the platform. It also helps this reincarnation of Bowser's castle feel more unique. Getting to the top floor, we face the big guy himself. Really, we're just here for the amp berries, but he's only focused on beating our ass. And boy, is he focused. This fight can get pretty stressful. He has this one shell attack where if you miss countering it, you'll trip over and he'll enter another phase of his attack, screwing yourself twice-fold. Trust me, the sure-footed guard plug will be your best friend here. You also gotta worry about his minions. When he's tipped over like this, they'll try to push him back on his feet. Counterattacks are more important than ever because of these mechanics, so this makes for a great challenge for your reflexes so far. However, while we were fighting, Bowser Jr. gets kidnapped by the extension core. While Bowser can't do anything because he's still folded like an omelet, Buddy got hit with Glohm trying to save him, and Mario and Luigi just kinda watch things happen. Fortunately, we get Buddy cured with an amp berry. These Goombas accidentally leak the location of their berry supply. 2 Goombas are going to be losing their jobs tonight. At least we finally have this whole Bowser stuff off our shoulders. Now we can focus on that last great lighthouse. Okay, so remember when I said not much really happens in the 3rd lighthouse? Well, I meant that nothing memorable really happens outside of the boss. At least it actually has as much content as the others. The 4th one though, this one actually has fuck all. There are 3 floors of single rooms with some lore to read and some enemies to fight. Then bravo, we made it. Not even a boss. At first I was confused and thought to myself, wow, they just gave up here, didn't they? But knowing what comes right after this, the lack of content here will make more sense. You're mainly here to dig into these journal entries from Zokket to see what's going on inside his head. It hints that his whole obsession with loneliness might be a result of him being brainwashed. He's been hearing voices from this entity who goes by Reclusa, and that egg we saw a glimpse of from way before was him in a sort of fetus state, and by gathering all this concentrated Glohm power, he can be fully unleashed into the world. Oh, and there's also one last note left behind by Ark's dad, also talking about Zokket's weird behavior with the egg. What? You forgot about Ark's iconic kidnapped father, Patriarch? Well, so did I. And so did the game. I'm just gonna tell you right now, they reunite in the credits. The writers deadass forgot about this poor child and his father. There's no other explanation. We got some good insight here, but overall a very underwhelming dungeon, if you even want to call it that. It's really just an appetizer for the main event, because restoring the final lighthouse opens the way to Zokket's place. There's a bunch of red shit coming out of it like Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. I remember this causing a panic at first, because I just wanted to observe the fortress, but then Snoutlet's like, hey, let's do this shit right fucking now. And then I got forced over there with no way to come back, and I was like, wait, what the hell? I didn't want to go here yet. I still had shit to do. Like, why would they send me on a one-way trip to the final boss without any warning? Oh, it's a fake out, isn't it? Yeah, it's a fake out. In hindsight, this is painfully obvious. Dude, the objective marker is so cringe. Find Zokket and end all this. Oh, it's the end, yeah? Developers writing this were like, heh. I can't wait to see the look on their faces when they realize there's still 10 hours left. It'll become even more obvious when you walk through like 3 rooms and you're already at the rooftop. Bowser storms in demanding for his son back, but little did he know Junior was being used as bait. Now Zokket can use him as his test subject. This involves all the lighthouses turning dark and evil again, which like, I thought the whole thing Connie was doing was purifying them or something, and that's how they show light again? I guess there was some evil energy we didn't account for, I don't know, it's a weird rug pull. He injects Bowser with 4 lighthouses worth of Glohm, so he's like super duper gloomy, and that sheer power is gonna be tested on us. Hey yo, look at the J's!
This motherfucker got them big J's! I gotta get out of here!
And they come with jetpacks? Excuse me, I want what he's having. This explains why there was no boss back there, because Bowser with the J's is the actual boss of this chapter. And man, this might be the toughest one in the whole game outside of the optional ones. There are so many ways to doom yourself here. You have the constant looming threat of Bowser spreading Glohm on the floor, so you have to beat him before it creeps up to you. Zokket reinforcements come in that also get infected by the icky stuff. Mario and Luigi can easily get inflicted with Glohm, where they refuse to do attacks with the other person. Even the Luigi logic bit, you really gotta pull your own weight. It has us hijack this airship that leads into a vertical shooting segment, and getting hit once causes it to break. What's even more unforgiving is that it won't reappear if you let this happen, so then you have to damage Bowser the slower way. And need I remind you, there's a big pool of red stuff coming your way. These shooting segments are your opportunity to really chip away at his health, so you gotta be super careful here. And also, you need to wait for Bowser to be dizzy for you to steal the airship. And even with all these things in mind, Bowser just doesn't stop attacking. He gets to move twice in a row, and there are all these elaborate stunts. All the cinematics and the intimidation factor has to make this one of, if not the best boss fight in this whole series. Bowser with the non-creased J's cannot be matched, although we've got way bigger fish to fry after him. The odds here aren't looking too good if you ask me, and even the universe is telling these guys, yo, you are not ready for this shit. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Oh, we are not ready for this shit. Snoutlet, you bastard.
Jump! Jump! Do it, you bitch! Do it!
Next thing we know, Mario winds up on a beach and this crab almost cuts off his salami. We don't really know where we are, but there's only one thing on Mario's mind right now.
Luigi?
Wait, hold on. Yeah, sorry about that, I lost my place. I always love this trope in games where near the end, you come back to one of the first areas. It's just a satisfying showcase of your growth. And in this case, with Mario and Luigi being inseparable this time, there's an air of confidence unlike before. I mean, now with our elemental powers combined, now we can blow up anything that stands in our way. We learned this bro bomb technique by the same mysterious voice from before. He goes on about the power of friendship and stuff, and how our brothership has been the glue that's been keeping Concordia together. He also explains why Luigi has been built differently throughout this adventure, and if they were gonna be like, oh, this powerful being just gave him this talent, that would have been so lame. But no, he says it's been inside him the entire time. It's just amplified because Concordia vibes with his energy so much. Not much really happens on this island, but I find it very nice. It's a much needed relaxation break after going through what was Glohm Bowser. That voice came from this all-seeing entity of Concordia named the Great Conductor, and if you think he looks a little familiar, Snoutlet reveals that he's basically his nephew that does the groceries for him. He goes on about a lot of deep philosophical stuff, but most importantly, he's gonna reveal to us who's behind Zokket's mask. You're not gonna believe this. Zokket is actually Connie's mentor, Cosette. Watch with the straight face. If you've been playing up to this point, or even just said their names in the same breath, you probably figured this out a long time ago. I wish they could have contained themselves with the naming, then I would have taken this reveal as seriously as it should be. Because when you think about it, it's heavy stuff when you think about how even a Watanist, the biggest ambassador for the power of connections, can still be susceptible to believing the opposite. It shows how this trap of isolation and the desire to close yourself off from the world can get to anyone. Another thing to note is that Zokket is still referred to as a a he? Look, I'm not a doctor, but I can't see how Glohm is a good substitute for HRT. Like, side effects include becoming all red and evil and having thoughts of blowing up the earth. The great Conductor challenges us to see if our bond is strong enough to beat Zokket. This is more of a gimmicky fight, but I vibe with it. You have to spot the difference between the real brother and the clones by seeing who has the right animation clip. It's hard to describe, but seeing 4 dancing Luigis in a row with the music cracks me up like an idiot. Once we've shown him our Mario and Luigi brothership, he gives us this awesome battle plug called Auto Luigi, where in the middle of fights, he'll run off to find a cool bug on the ground. And using this island's lighthouse, we can get back to our ship. I guess since we played a cup game with a deity, now we're actually ready to fight Zokket, but his place is a lot more fortified, so we gotta think of an upgrade for our ship to get around its security. Technicky is still workshopping on ideas at the moment, but the old guy says we could reach out to this renowned genius named Daphne, who's typically chilling at this club called the Jellyfish Dance Hall. We saw a glimpse of her in this one side quest from Technicky. There was this flashback where she got one-upped by a Daphne in a nerd competition, so ever since, Technicky has felt like she has a lot to prove. And I gotta say, that's pretty rough. If I was in a game jam and then the winner talked to me like this, I'd probably jump off a bridge. So yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that, Technicky. Anyways, let's go find a Daphne because we need someone smart right now. Oh yeah, they kind of glossed over this, but now we're in the 5th and final sea, the Stormstar Sea. Ooh, the water looks pretty nasty here. It looks like the water from It's a Small World. I'm pretty sure drinking that would give you cancer. Alright, the last island in the game, Jellyfish Island. You remember way back in Twisty Island where I said my favorite island was the one we get to a lot later? Well, we're finally here. I love this place. The vibes are immaculate with the undersea aesthetic and the sunset backdrop, and the whole lifestyle here is just about having fun and enjoying yourself. There's nothing to fight on this island either. It's all about being a part of the community. Seeing that the end game is right around the corner, I think it's nice of them to dedicate this last island to spending time with the people and participating in their customs. This is also home to the Groove Master from before, and we're only let into the dance hall if we show him some schmoovin' and groovin'. Wait, are you joking? This is the dance hall security? If even 2 people tried to enter at the same time, he's just fucked. The dance hall is even more electric than the outside. They serve giant pizzas and offer you drinks without asking for ID. Our goal is to wake up a Daphne from her nap in the pool, and this involves a mini trading sequence around the club. It's a pretty low-key process, where all the while you can take in the neon colors in that groovy disco track. That's something I should quickly talk about before the game's over. Brothership has an all-around good soundtrack. It doesn't quite enter the Hall of Fame of Mario RPGs, like Dream Team or Origami King, but comparing any soundtrack to Origami King would just be plain unfair. It's home to a number of earworms such as Twisty Island, Shipshape Island, and the Jellyfish Dance Hall, but my favorites would be all of the highly energetic battle themes. I really like them, though I feel like there's also a shortage of battle themes. The whole game you're stuck with the regular enemy encounter music, the mini-boss theme, and the greater boss theme. So that means Bowser doesn't get his own track with his fights, which I found pretty disappointing. As far as recapturing Mario and Luigi's music style, it does a fairly solid job. With the boss music, for example, they don't go as full yoinky sploinky off the walls goofy as they did with the Alpha Dream titles, but it's got its own energetic kick to it. Personally, I think it's best they found a middle ground between matching the vibe of their predecessor and offering their own style. After almost causing a Daphne to drown, we fill her in on the whole Zokket stuff, and she offers to make something useful for us if we make her a big pizza.
Did you know?
This leads to a neat little pizza making minigame, and as you pass the dough back and forth and spreading the toppings all around, it reminds me of the pizza minigame from Mario Party 9, the one that's in the thumbnail of that minigame compilation video. I still can't get over how many fucking people watch that. This video freaking eclipsed the amount of people who bought the game. So yeah, we make her a bunch of giant pizzas that we don't get to eat a single bite of. She also fell for Luigi's autism, so now she's definitely on board. However, she's already causing a big stink at Shipshape. She wants to kick out all our friends while she works on the upgrade, but Technicky came up with her own idea while we were gone. She plans on installing rockets to our ship in order to fly over Zokket's force field, while Daphne will have the ship dive underneath the water. So here we have our final branching path of the story. I've nitpicked these to death, but I find this one to be actually pretty effective. Like, no matter who you choose for the job, you'll still have the means to get to Zokket's fortress, plus a very handy device for fast travel, but it's more of a test of your faith. You're choosing if you'll put your trust into your friends or give in to this group of professionals. At first, I thought it it was ridiculous how you could tell a Daphne to take a hike after we went through all that rigmarole to come and get her for specifically this. But thinking about it more, that adds more weight to this dilemma. Like, you were already set with this plan that had confident minds behind it. Are you willing to give up such a guaranteed success to give Technicky her big moment? For this, I wanted to see how both options panned out, and if you go with a Daphne, man, you really feel like a jerk. Like, Irene storms off and is really upset at us, and while nobody else reacts that much, I can really feel their disappointment on the inside.
Way to go, Squidward. You ruined his favorite fucking holiday for him.
I can't help but feel like this was the wrong choice, but I find it really interesting that they allow you to make it. Even when you commit to Technicky's idea, it's still pretty awkward that you brought these guys all the way here only to say never mind. It's kind of funny. I like how it's a genuinely tough decision. I wish more of these split paths would offer more moral dilemmas like this, instead of most of them coming down to which thing do you want to do first. Whoever you choose says they need an engine part to get it fully working, so we gotta steal one from Bowser's castle. Nothing much happens here apart from a side quest where Starlo wants to check in on Bowser after he got all beat up. Hey, she finally does something. And it's rage baiting Bowser. You get some reminiscing about their days from Bowser's inside story, but it just ends with him telling us to get the fuck out. Well, joke's on you, we're stealing your shit again. And now our ship is ready to take to the skies. Or dive underwater if you're a bad friend. I mean, in all fairness, going under the water looks very pretty with the bubbles, but flying is 10 times more badass, plus the power of friendship and all that. Either way, we can get around those spikes surrounding Fortress Zokket. So once we've made our final preparations and done all of our chores, it's time to kick some ass. And the way we demolish the front gates with the bro bomb is so raw. We are not here to chew bubblegum. Damn, Zokket, you live like this? There's exposed wires all over the place, and I'm like 90% sure there's a gas leak. I don't care much for how this dungeon starts out, and that's mainly because of the enemy variety. So throughout the game, whenever we're traversing great lighthouses or other places invaded by Zokket's forces, the enemy variety mostly sticks to these Zokket troops. There's the red guys with the pointy arms, white ones with this boomerang, green dudes who can spawn glow sticks, and the newly introduced blue ones with jetpacks. And since now we're at the enemy territory, we'll be fighting the same dudes we've been fighting on several occasions. And by now, I'm so done with these little shits. On rare occasions, two different types of troopers will work together for a combo attack, and that's cool and all, but they do it so rarely I don't even have footage for it. It gets way more interesting when we think it's time to face the big three, but we fell right into their trap, and now the brothers got separated. They, in fact, don't take this opportunity to deal with us one by one. They even acknowledge as such. God, even when their life is on the line, the three of them still act like they share a brain cell. Fortunately, Luigi found these Mario World speakers to communicate with Mario.
Mario!
So now we solve puzzles by swapping between the two brothers to get them back to the same place. They haven't been separated since the Lottacoins operation, and that's only if you choose them to be. So this feels like an ultimate test of how they can stand on their own feet, and if they can still work together from a distance. I also like these puzzles with the electric bridges. You can't shut off all the segments, so you need to do just enough where Luigi can jump across them. After we get the two back together, now we can wipe the smug off their faces. They've got nowhere to run, so believe it or not, they're actually gonna fight us this time. Shun says after this, he's gonna be a famous guy beater. I hate to break this to you, Shun, but Pride Month is over. You can't be gay anymore. So we finally get our Extension Core boss fight after so long. And while I don't think it should have taken this long, I think it's worth it from how perfect it characterizes these three. Every attack and exchange they have shows how out of sync they are between each other. And while it does inevitably lead to their defeat, it also makes them more difficult to fight from being so uncoordinated. Like even their supposed group attack just has them do their own random nonsense. Shun pulls out his own battle plugs to use against us, and you can tell by the other two's reaction that this was not planned out very well, and this lack of communication backfires immensely. It's their negative chemistry that makes the Extension Core so funny as a trio. They remind me of Team Rocket in that regard. My favorite one is Shun, in case you're wondering, even if he's a bit problematic because of the whole They end with using this bizarre plug that makes them invisible for a bit, but then blows up everyone. The only way I've dealt with this is equipping the Protect Us plug that makes you invulnerable for a few attacks. I think the intended way is to use a boo biscuit or something, since they make you invisible for a while. With those guys out of our hair, now there's nothing between us and Zokket. We confront him in the middle of giving birth, so that's a bit awkward. The egg with Reclusa inside is moments from hatching, but he says we won't even be here to see it.
Oh, shiver my timbers! Shut up, man!
Oh yeah.
Okay, I was a little bummed to hear that Bowser didn't get his own boss theme, but fair, he's not the main antagonist. I was disappointed when the Extension Corps also didn't get their own theme, but sure, they're mini-bosses, maybe I'll let that slide. Freaking Zokket just has the normal boss theme, are you serious? That is criminal for someone built up as the big bad for the entire game. Like, imagine if Phantasma was robbed of such a banger. You're fighting this evil nightmare demon and it plays Never Let Up. That complaint aside, we still have a good boss fight here. He does all he can to get you to choke on your counterattacks, even swapping around the brothers' positions to throw off your reflexes. If one of the brothers get caught with Glohm, Zokket is able to control them, and he forces the two to fight each other. I really like this tactic with how you don't want to get either side injured. You only want to swing your hammer to block the infected brother's attack, and put it away once they've become unarmed. Then you show them motivational TikToks to fuel them with hope again. I remember the first time fighting this guy, I got my ass handed to me on a silver platter. I admit I even had to give in and switch to easy mode. This time, however, I wasn't going to fold so easily. I had a little trick up my sleeve. You see, if you manage to craft almost every single battle plug, you unlock one final plug called Wait a Minute, where after you attack you go, actually, and you just get to move again. And this bad boy has 3 charges. Combine that with this cracked build where Zokket takes double critical hits, and the bros attacks are boosted, plus insurance that we won't trip over. Within a matter of a couple of turns, he went down like a domino. God, I love the battle plugs, man. However, even once we defeat him, he still technically won, as we're too late to stop the ritual. Seeing as their mission is complete, Zokket reverts back to Cosette, and so the god of loneliness, Reclusa, gets released into the world. Maybe it's the TV head bias speaking, but this guy looks fucking sick. Immediately, he starts flexing his god powers. He starts spawning all of these freaky Hot Topic stuff. Hell yeah, this is gonna make for a banger final boss. No, wait, we're running? Again? Like, I get it, that's the smart thing to do here. Zokket is a small fry compared to Reclusa, but we're deadass doing a fake out for the ending a second time. Okay, let's see where this goes. Reclusa turns the fortress in this big ol' evil tree, and we manage to escape in our ship. Connie finally reunites with Cosette. That's sweet and all. You got these flowers that are hijacking people's brains and trapping them in their own fantasy lands. That's some freaky stuff there. The fortress has a force field. Again, talking to Cosette, she says we can break it using enough bond energy or whatever, and we can collect that using this bonding can. So now we gotta go around the islands collecting... Ladies, gentlemen, both and neither, welcome to the worst part of the game. This secret final act took me from speechless in a good way, amazed by the introduction of Reclusa, to speechless in a bad way, out of disbelief that we're still going. Don't get me wrong, seeing Reclusa's whole dystopia into fruition is a sight to behold, but damn it, this game just doesn't want to end. Now, my frustrations with this last leg aren't as simple as it's padding, therefore bad. It actually comes from very mixed emotions. You see, from a gameplay perspective, yeah, this feels like padding. You are not doing anything different than what you've been doing the whole last game. No new islands, just backtracking the previous ones. Pretty much, you're hunting down characters you've met that have been shown to have powerful relationships. And by putting that on display, it summons their bond energy, in which you put in your bond can. It doesn't seem that bad at first. I saw the animation with the can filling up, and seeing 3 petals on the gauge, I thought, okay, we just gotta locate 3 bonds and then we can actually get back to progressing. And the gauge filled up like this.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
There's actually 6, not 3. Not even the fruit punch can save this man. The whole twist with Reclusa replacing Zokket as the villain works on paper. If you're gonna introduce a new, more powerful antagonist, it's great that they gave him enough screen time for his power to be feared. But again, this is the second time they're edging the final boss. No matter the intention from the player's side, it's exhausting when they're led to believe they're almost done after 30 hours into this RPG, only to say, psych, 5 more. Now, of course, padding isn't always the reason for a longer runtime. Some games just need longer times to fully cook. You can give birth before finishing Persona 5, yet that's one of the most beloved games of our age, because it's given so much breathing room for their characters and story to develop. If Brothership has the same intention, they also have to make sure they're keeping the gameplay fresh, which they do not. The only bit here that's a standout to me is when we're struggling to find one more batch of bond energy, and we end up getting it from the extension core, because, well, first of all, they're just a funny group, and I like seeing them get more screen time, but it also gives you a more nuanced perspective on these guys. Despite working for this plan of destroying all connections, they themselves had a connection between each other, even if it's hard to see at times. I mean, if they really didn't like each other, they wouldn't be working together, would they? This is what inevitably makes them not cut out to work for Zokket, someone who hardly communicates and couldn't care less about anyone, even his own henchmen. And coming to this realization is what gives them a change of heart. That brings me to why I'm so conflicted about this part of the game, because from a writing perspective, this elevates the climax so well. The world is now in a far worse state than it ever was before. The pressure feels so much heavier. Like with those virtual reality flowers, their purpose is to isolate everyone in their own asylums, where they won't even know they're perishing in the real world. Reclusa made these devices not only so he can have the real world to himself, but to demonstrate his belief on how solitude is better for the individual. If one lives by themselves and for only themselves, they don't have to compromise their wants for anyone else's. And it's here where I believe that the writers wanted to touch on deeper subjects. In fact, I'm pretty sure I know what these freaky flowers are based on. I took this one ethics class the other year, and we learned about this thought experiment about this experience machine, where you could plug your brain into it and experience your ideal reality. It's meant to challenge the hedonistic mindset, if seeking pleasure is all there is to living, and to ask you if you would take the easy way out to a more pleasing reality, or live life authentically. And of course, because of my Mario rotten brain, I was thinking to myself, hey, this is kind of like those things in Mario and Luigi Brothership. But as sci-fi as this concept may seem, this type of social disconnect from reality is something that occurs in the modern day, and Reclusa's perspective in favor of isolation is, unfortunately, a real and common mindset. It's often that when people struggle to maintain connections in the real world, they resort to indulging themselves in virtual realities, where everything is tailored to their desires. And in that case, it may sound like a better life, but it feels hollow when at the end of the day, it's not real. And this extreme case of escapism can be very unhealthy when you end up neglecting your real life. I don't think I'm digging too deep here. I mean, Reclusa literally has a digital screen for a face. It's a shockingly deep and relevant subject for a post-Sticker Star Mario game to cover. Brothership's message can be boiled down to the power of friendship, not the most introspective stuff. I can get that fix from Disney Jr., but if there's one thing I'll give the exhausting runtime, it allows them to explore this theme a lot more thoroughly than most that tackle it. You get to see the unique strengths of all kinds of relationships, from family, friends, lovers, friends in quotation marks, and even bonds that shine through despite a lack of chemistry on the surface. And in this final chapter, they cover the other side of this message that isn't talked about nearly as much, the dangers of closing yourself off from real, meaningful relationships. And if I'm gonna be honest, I was kinda touched by all this, and after this I actually believe that bonds are as powerful as they make it out to be, albeit in a more subtle way than how it's depicted here. I don't want to get too personal here, but with the anxieties I deal with on a daily basis, I know I would be in a much darker state of mind if it weren't for the love and support of my peers. Ironically, I find it makes the biggest difference in the connection you have with yourself. When you aren't around other people, you don't get any perspective on yourself except your own, which may not always be the most positive, but having that close, powerful relationship with someone, seeing that they genuinely enjoy your company, and they see something in you that you never saw in yourself, you get convinced that maybe you were being a little too hard on yourself. And it's likely that you bring that same effect to them too. Yes, the way they communicate all this is cheesy and on the nose. Bonds are symbolized by this Disney-ass magic yellow particles, but in reality, what I feel from my relationships at times really do feel like magic. Maybe it doesn't explore the deeper importance of connections as much as I'd prefer, but if it's enough to at least provide the player a gateway into this healthier mindset on society, if it spoke to those that needed to hear it, that could potentially change their lives in the long run, that is more than enough for me. I love how they gave all the supporting cast their proper conclusions, and I love the perfect bow they gave on the running theme of this game. But god damn it, they just had to make the game boring. Who am I hitting the gritty for this time? Nobody. Look around. They're all busy having orgasms in VR chat. If you want to further expand your story, the game experience has to evolve alongside it, or it's hard to back you up when you're accused of padding. Years later, we finally fill up our stupid watering can. Before we blast off and break into Reclusa's house, all the friends we met along the way gather around to cheer us on. It's a powerful moment after all we've been through with these guys. It almost makes up for the whole... Well, I don't know about that. Using the concentrated power of everyone's mushy feelings for each other, Mario and Luigi break through the barrier and land into Soli-Tree, the actual, real, final stretch of the game. I promise. I gotta hand it to Reclusa, I like what he did with the place. He yassified Fortress Zokket to his own taste. Something about this metallic fortress being decorated with horrific plant life gives such uniquely dystopian imagery. This dungeon revolves around this central room that needs 8 plugs to activate the elevator to the 2nd floor, so we need to get 1 from each of the 8 branching paths. These all serve as ultimate challenges for all the overworld platforming and puzzles we've been doing throughout the game, and while some of them are as fun as they're made out to be, if it revolves around a mechanic that I never cared for, I especially don't care for its last hoorah. This is also the point where I gloss past most of the enemies. I'm pretty checked out with battles by now. At this point, even with the customization of battle plugs, they're starting to get old. What sucks is that nothing is really that wrong about this dungeon, and the visuals are popping, but just being part of such a drawn-out final act, I just can't help but stare at the wristwatch that I don't have. Oh my god. I fucking hated that shit. We are literally approaching the end of this long-ass game, and you're gonna introduce a time attack challenge in the most drawn-out, no-object permanence way imaginable. Like, bro, I can figure it out on my own. If any person of any skill level made it this far, they can figure out that this is, in fact, supposed to be a race. Look, I know it's not a big deal, but the game has already taken so much patience from me, and this was the breaking point. Look, whatever is waiting on the 2nd floor, it's really gotta be something out of this world. And it was all a dream, wrap it up. Suddenly we're back at the Mushroom Kingdom, and upon entering the front yard of Peach's castle, everyone's all a-okay, and a little too happy to see us. Snoutlet also got here, and he's more skeptical than the brothers. After doing some chit-chat around the place, Peach tells us to head inside the castle land. Okay, they won me back. This is pretty cool. So yeah, Reclusa caught the Mario brothers in those flowers and trapped them in their own paradise. The fake residents try to keep them busy by setting up all these platforming challenges, but every now and then the three start to spot irregularities. Every time the simulation loops, the cracks start to show more and more. Everyone gets more desperate in convincing you nothing's wrong, and the way they put the camera at Dutch angles is a pretty great touch. An even greater touch though is the music. It starts out like your ideal Mushroom Kingdom tune, a bouncy remix of the World 1 map theme from Mario 3, but after each iteration, parts of it get removed and this weird droning sound creeps in. I just really like this sequence, how we're resisting the simulation, poking around where we shouldn't be, and watching the whole thing collapse on itself. There's also this cool platforming puzzle where some assets are invisible to us, but they get revealed through Lakitu's camera, and the challenge of using that is from its weird perspective. I think this could all benefit from Snoutlet yapping a little less. There's too much of him telling me that things aren't right instead of leaving the reactions to me. Instead of indulging ourselves, we just start bombing Reclusa wherever he goes, and we piss him off enough for him to pull the plug in this operation. Now he just wants to kill us in real life, but not without some Mario 64's personalized type encounter.
Am I gonna die next week?
I was not expecting a psychological horror section in Mario, and yeah, it's far from actually scary, but it's just novel to see them dip their toes in that kind of stuff. Getting to the top floor, we get ambushed by a bunch of Reclusa's minions, but thankfully Bowser comes in clutch and wipes the place clean with his airship. I love how he still thinks that Zokket's behind all this. Shows how out of touch he is in the greater plot. Our eyes get brought to this giant tree, which Reclusa says he's gonna fuse with to become all powerful and junk, but Snoutlet brings out this giant plug for us to chase after him. This is the part where the game turns into Subway Surfers. We gotta cancel out these fire and ice balls with the opposite element. Then we bomb Reclusa some more, go ham on our bros attacks, rinse and repeat. Obviously, this is just the first phase, but I kinda like how we have this more gimmicky opening. Despite beating the ever-loving crap out of him, we see him all fine and well. I guess it was a fake clone or something, they don't really explain. He makes a mad dash for inside the tree, where he fuses with it and enters his final form, Weeping Reclusa. Bowser tries to take him on, but he hits him with the watch your tone motherfucker, and then he starts farting everywhere and it causes Mario, Luigi, and Snoutlet to pass out. It cuts back to Connie where she gets a pep talk from Cosette, and she builds the courage to come on help here and help us. While her energy is getting sapped from all the smoke, she uses the last of it to sprinkle some hopium particles onto us. And just when it seems that it was too little too late, it's enough power for us to get back on our feet and feel good as new. And then Snoutlet gives his own pep talk, reminding us about all the cool stuff we did and how awesome we are. And with us all fired up, he tells us to show him what true brothership looks like.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's doing me! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Hell yeah, let's fucking do this, man. Oh, there's a bit of a short phase of having to deal with these snapper wire flower thingies, but once you get Snoutlet out of their jaws, Luigi has one final stroke of Luigi logic to take out Weeping Reclusa from the inside, and that's with more Subway Surfers. Da 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 da. Once they get inside the tree, Reclusa forms this defensive shell around him. The whole thing with this phase is that the shell will grow resistant to your attack if you use it enough, so it forces you to use your entire palette of bros moves. It's a pretty creative way to test your range of skills, but I like the last phase even more. He's got some tricky attacks, like turning one of the brothers to stone, having the other carry him on his shoulder and making counterattacks more sluggish. And there's no big gimmicks in the way this time. This is your final chance to prove your worth without anything holding you back. And I love once he reaches half health, he gets all pissed off, and the atmosphere gets a lot more electric. He starts yelling for your demise in the middle of his attacks, and the music ramps up with this dubstep beat. I can't say the final boss music reaches the same highs as in the final or Adventure's End, but the way it evolves on each phase is an interesting enough direction. Man, if he's pissed off now, just wait until I hit him with the... Yeah, I managed to defeat his second phase in 3 turns thanks to this. And here I was starting to realize, okay, maybe it's a little too busted. Bringing him down to his knees, it seems he's starting to have a change of heart. That maybe having friends is pretty cool, and forcing everyone not to have them is selfish. Until he's like, nah, that's bullshit. Fuck your friend slop. And he tries to pull a fast one and take us under the floor. But that's nothing when the power of the Mario Brothers gets his TV head bashed in with 2 hammers. What an insane way to go out. Before he gets erased from this planet, Connie gives Reclusa a whole lecture on why you should go outside and make some friends. I do appreciate how she acknowledges you don't need to be with other people all the time, because it is true. As an introvert myself, while I do value quality time with my friends and family, my social battery drains at 3 times the rate, so also spending enough time by yourself will give you a great sense of balance in your life. Personally, I would have liked if they demonstrated this with some character in the story who prefers to keep to themselves but doesn't completely shut everyone out. In other words, an introvert. His empire starts to disappear with him, so we gotta get the hell out of here right now. Long story short, the 4 of us jump off, and we hold each other's hands and recreate the opening to Wii Sports Resort. Once we make it back to Shipshape alive, everyone gathers around for some celebration. But the great Conductor hits us with Jeff Keighley's Please Wrap It Up Jumbotron. He's ready to restore the Land of Concordia, but since he doesn't have much power left, he has to send the Mushroom Kingdom gang back home in the same breath. So before that, they give us this last chance to walk around and say goodbye to everyone we met. And look, I've made my complaints about the runtime and the pacing, but on the positive side, since we've spent so much time with these characters, I grew all the more attached to them, and it makes saying goodbye kinda emotional. It wasn't enough to make me cry, but I definitely felt the feelings. Like, this was such a journey that I went through for a good 3 months, and even though it got to a point where I just wanted it to end, it still feels surreal and a little bit sad. Even with this video, I started working on it over 4 months ago, so me getting to this part in the editing phase, it hits hard all the same. If this final scene proves anything, Mario and Luigi Brothership is a masterpiece at heart. But man, in order to see that heart, you gotta tank some bullshit. This is one of many cases I run into, where the artistic vision is butchered by its rough translation into game design. In the grand scheme of things, there's nothing systematically wrong with Brothership. For the most part, the mechanics are well implemented, some even exceed those of its predecessors. Its biggest problem lies with momentum. When you look back at the events of the game, there's a lot to remember fondly. Character moments, plot twists, goofy situations, the satisfying evolution of your own tool belt, but then you have to remember the speed at which the game brings you to those moments. You don't get to see the combat truly blossom when they introduce battle plugs, until you finish the entire Lushgreen Sea portion, where you're drip-fed new battle mechanics. The side quests are filled with all these humorous side plots, but between dialogue exchanges, you hardly do anything of note, and in order to witness the emotional core of the story in full bloom, the game's runtime had to feel artificially stretched out. Most of this game's problems can be fixed with a clean shave. Cut off a few hours in the Lushgreen Sea, introduce bros attacks and battle plugs sooner, cut the first fake out with Fortress Zokket, and the whole endgame really needs a second draft. My final playtime was 32 hours, but that's only because I've played this before and I always knew what to do next. My first time playthrough took almost 40 hours. I felt like it could have been around 25 without losing the important stuff. As someone who is able to sit through all the sluggishness, I came out enjoying the game quite a bit, but I also understand why it's so divisive. Not everyone is going to be as patient to see the whole thing to the end, and a focus on story over gameplay isn't for everyone. But for me, that's the biggest thing I respect about Brothership. I really want this franchise to have more gripping stories. There was a short time where they made Mario games that actually wanted to say something, but I guess they talked about grief too much, it scared poor Shiggy. Ever since, he and his disciples have had the sentiment that Mario doesn't need a deep storyline, and the game should focus on fun gameplay, and I'll never understand why they can't have both. They're not mutually exclusive. Mario has had really fun gameplay for years. There's nothing to improve in that field, but you know what part of these games that does have room for evolution? The story. So for Brothership to actually prioritize story over gameplay, it makes it really special in my eyes. But at the same time, with the severe pacing issues that it created, it sort of confirms the skepticism. So I hope this didn't discourage emphasizing the story. If you couldn't tell by the sheer length of this review, this is the most passionate I've ever been about something I'd rate a 7 out of 10. The tension with this game from Mario and Luigi fans is how it'll shape the future of the Mario and Luigi series. But for me, it's how it'll affect the Mario franchise as a whole. I think what we're all hoping for is that they learn the right lessons from this. I mean, the fact that this game even exists is proof that at least someone up there cares about this series. So if Acquire has plans on making another Mario and Luigi game, I believe things will only go up from here. This will remain as one of the most polarizing Mario games, but no matter how you view this game, one thing is for certain. Mario and Luigi Brothership is an experiment, and I want to see more like it.
My side. Senpai.
Let's play football. World Cup!